Hello, everybody. Welcome to Retro RPGs The Revenge. Tonight, we're going to be covering a lot of the games that we haven't actually... We had to miss them in the last stream. We just ran too long. But since we covered most of the big ones at the time, now we're going to hit some of the lesser known... Well, maybe not lesser known, but not quite as big as stuff like, say, Dragon Quest and Final Fantasy. So... without further ado, let's go ahead and get started. As you can see...
And you still get us started on the overture from Dragon Quest.
Huh. Well, I figured I wanted to put something from the NES in. Anyway, so see who's here in the chat right now. We've got Snarb, we've got Chad, and we've got Garden Variety Games, aka Bromley. How's it going, guys? If we're... Okay, Snarb, you want to know if we're sticking to 16-bit for this one? And Sharon's here.
No.
No, we're going to be jumping around.
No.
So, alright, I've managed to get back the crew we had for the original Retro RPG stream.
Yay.
And
because getting hold of me was so difficult.
Well, but let's go ahead and reintroduce everyone who wasn't here the first time. Yeah, try, should I say, reintroduce everyone who was here the first time to the people in the chat who weren't here the first time. So, Kate?
There you go.
Hi, my name is Kate, aka Expert74. I'm a podcast co-host / editor for Hardcore Gaming 101, and I really love video games in general, including RPGs. So I'm really happy to get the chance to talk about them.
Excellent. And Mike?
Hey there, I'm Mike, aka Satanga, one of Rob's hetero life mates. And I'm surprised at how much I had to say in the last RPG stream, but I'm going to spoil something. I will have much, much less to say this time. So if you wanted to hear the gong sound, you might be disappointed. Maybe. Okay, that works.
Of course, everyone here should know Mike is my co-host. So,
Yep.
All right. And next up, we have Great White North.
Hi, I'm the Great White North from, Canada, and I stream on YouTube a lot of action games, RPGs, and things like that. And I love talking about RPGs as well, so I'm happy to be here once again to do this with you, everyone.
I appreciate it. And last, but certainly not least, is Forneia.
Hello, hello. I am Forneia. I am a retro and variety VTuber on Twitch. I play a variety of different video games, and usually they're retro, but not always. I do some modern things as well. I'm actually doing a playthrough of Fire Emblem Path of Radiance on Friday evenings right now, among others. Also, Great White North, I just want to throw out that if you want to like mess with people, you should say, yeah, I'm Great White North from Tahiti.
Actually,
I could choose that.
But, there's a lot of people out there known as the King of the North.
That's true, too.
Mm-hmm.
Yes, the Northern Equator.
Yeah. Now, Snarb asked, will action RPGs get their own roundtable? So...
One day.
Yeah, I've considered it, actually. So, it won't come for a while yet, but I think we'll do it at some point. So, before we start, is there any problems with the volume? Anyone can hear anything like that? Snarb?
Hello.
See what Snarb has to say. Yeah, just
We're asking about if the audio is fine.
Yeah. And, excellent, yes, good. Regarding action RPGs, that's something I actually know a bit more about than just, straightforward RPGs. So, personally, I'd love to talk about Eastbook 1 and 2 for the TurboGrafx.
Oh,
my
I'd
boy.
be down
Same.
to talk about
Yeah.
Ys anytime. That's my favorite action RPG series.
Boy,
So,
howdy.
Oh, amazing.
As well
I
as
think
should
Ys
be.
may have been my first, honestly. It's either that or Ultima 3, and I'm not certain because then we go into below 2.5-year-old Haze.
oh,
Well, I know for me, it was Eastbook 1 and 2, Galvelius for the Sega Master System. And,
Oh, you're listing off good ones.
yes. And if you count the original few Legend of Zelda games, then those two.
That's apparently an extremely controversial topic.
That is a controversial. Yeah,
Zelda fans and RPG fans.
Yeah, and it's just like I'm over
I
here
do
going,
count
no,
them.
they're not. They're totally not.
Well, this is why I said if you count those.
Very well chosen. Very well
Yeah.
chosen wording.
Yeah.
definitely.
So, but East and Galvelius
Snarb-
are long favorites of mine.
Snarb, Oath is probably still regarded as the best one by most people I know.
That is my personal favorite.
It
Bingo.
rolls.
I haven't played nearly enough, but I have played that one, and it is fantastic, so yeah.
Yeah, I even got the visual art book for Ys. I love the series so much.
Nice.
Awesome.
Excellent.
That's super
Excellent.
cool.
Yeah, I agree with Snarb on that one.
By the way, Oath was a
before
remake
we
of 3,
get-
right?
Yep.
Yes.
Yeah,
Cool.
3
Remake
formerly
one,
somewhat oddball due to its sideways perspective became basically an even more kick-ass version of 6, and it just did so much right. And it even had a couple of twists, and we are not discussing Ys today, sorry.
last note on Ys. That was the first one I've ever played. Was the Wonders from the Ys 3, the side
Very
scroll.
nice. Yeah,
So before we
first,
get a little too far away from the overture from the intro, I actually have a little amusing anecdote if I can share that real quick.
Sure, go ahead.
Shoot.
All right, so last week I think it was. That sounds right. Yes, it was last Friday. I was doing an archipelago stream, which is basically like a randomizer, but with multiple people. Each person plays a different game, and finding items in one will influence the others. So it's like, Dyer, you were seeing. I was like, okay, you have SMZ3 where you have like you find Zelda items in Metroid and Metroid items in Zelda.
Yeah.
Imagine that, but you're in Metroid, and you find an item for someone playing Final Fantasy 1. Like that's the kind of scale we're talking about here.
That would be
And
interesting.
I was playing that with my friends, Frankomatic and Cess Ball, and Cess had just woken up because they're both in Japan, and we did this at an hour that was early for me and early for them as well. So like no one was awake, and she's sitting on the title screen of Final Fantasy 1. And she's like, okay, no one needs to listen to the Final Fantasy overture that much. And I called her out on it basically immediately. I was like, I like how you called it the overture, even though it's not Dragon Quest. And she like started freaking out about it, realizing what she'd done. She's like, oh my God.
Nice.
And I couldn't help it. I was just like, I can't wait for the Dragon Quest prelude. She started screaming.
Now,
It was really funny. It was a good time.
I do want to address somebody in the chat real quick. Bruno. It's funny you say that, Mr. Sega Hater, because we are actually going to open up with a Sega series. So, yeah.
Wah, wah.
Oh, here, Mike, let me help you with that.
Why, thank you. That does help.
And I see Tim is here in the
The
chat.
one co-op of that.
Hola.
Hey, Tim.
Hello.
Hello, hello.
Welcome to the stream. Okay. We are going to kick things off with the Shining Force series. And we have to start at the beginning with that, which would be Shining in the Darkness. So, question is, who wants to kick us off with this?
I suppose I could, if you're all okay with that. I will say this, if you were around for the last one, I'm going to be distinctly less verbose and historically inclined for many entries on our itinerary for today because I've not actually put in that research. So, I mean, I could snapshot some Wikipedia pages to talk about. I was like, oh yeah, the director of it was this and etc. But you know,
Which may actually be for
Well,
the best,
just to
though.
add to that.
Uh,
Oh, sorry.
no, I was just saying that.
I was just going to say that.
false start.
Go ahead, Great White North.
Oh, sorry. I was just going to say that the last time all that information was utterly fantastic. I learned a
Thank
lot
you.
more.
Thank you. You're too kind.
But I will say that ever since one of the more recent streams we did that ran almost 3.5 hours, I think it was, trying to keep it down to about 2 to 2.5 nowadays. So probably for the best that you're not doing that for now. And if I have to
It's
go
not
ahead,
like it's an active choice. I just have information when I have information, and I like to talk about it.
I don't blame you there. I mean, get me on the subject of Splatterhouse, and I probably won't shut up, or Gradius. But it's okay.
Right.
In the event that Mike runs long, I always have this.
Just me.
Yes, Mike, just you. Nah, I'm kidding. Anyway.
Well, ain't it? Anywho, yes.
All right. Well, thank you, Bruno, for saying you're glad to see us streaming again. So, all right, Forneia, go ahead and kick us off.
Alrighty, so running on a little bit of haze here, but Shining in the Darkness is an entry made by Climax Entertainment, who I think there's some kind of something in there between them and Camelot, as I recall. And boy howdy, Camelot is a story all its own. But this is Shining in the Darkness is a first-person dungeon crawling game. Kind of, taking the idea that Wizardry presents and making it into a rather approachable and fairly toned down console effort. And that's not to say that it's wizardry. It's just taking that perspective and that kind of approach to things, but without things like needing to worry about classes or whatever. Because you actually have like a story that is a little more involved than you might expect, but it's not like anything particularly tremendous. You have your hero who is a knight in training, whose father was escorting the princess to the local monarch, and they were last seen in the vicinity of the labyrinth. And you are tasked with investigating, is there any proof that you can find that the princess is in there, because they're both missing. And upon finding that, you are requested to prepare to dive down very deep and to do so with loyal allies, which gets you basically the two troublemakers around town who are your best friends, because apparently you are a knight with some dubious associations, but it works out for you because one of them's a healer and the other's a mage.
Hey, that works.
Like that coinkydink.
Incidentally, the mage, Pyra, would show up in a game that we got called Time Stalkers, aka Climax Landers, on the Dreamcast as one of the playable characters in that.
Wow, I didn't know that.
Yeah. Now, I'll say that as my brother, as I said last time, he was the RPG guy. He actually quite enjoyed Shining in the Darkness. I remember sitting there and watching him, play it from time to time in the early 90s. And I always thought it looked good, but I knew even back then, it's like, this is not really my kind of game.
Understandable.
Yeah.
Yeah, for like a dungeon crawling affair, it's definitely very approachable. And it's like, I was like 3 or something, maybe 4, late 4, something like that. When, actually no, maybe I guess it would have been 5 or something. It's in a kind of a complicated part of my memory banks, but in that period, like, this was before I could properly read, but like, this was a dungeon crawler of this sort that I could play, because all of the items have like little portraits. They have like little pictures, And so, like, while there's, a bunch of text and dialogue, there's very, very good looking, like, game art for, like, the areas that you go into, like, for the tavern or the town or the castle. And so, like, it's very visually present. So you kind of know what's going on, who's saying what, and it's like, what is this? And it ends up working out and being very approachable, even if you're very young. So from that perspective, I think they made a very well-made game, even if some people find it a little on the simplistic, boring, or grindy side.
Yeah, I don't know.
It does also have the sin of having one track play for way too damn long.
I distinctly remember that.
Well, if you stick with it long enough, it does change music and gets to a very badass track.
Oh, absolutely. But you have to get there.
Yeah, it is a bit of a time investment.
Yeah, I didn't watch my brother play that long.
Alas.
So anyone else have anything to say about Shining in the Darkness at all? Anybody?
I mean, I do, but if North wants to go first, I don't know if we're going like counterclockwise or what.
I think we're taking a little bit of a different approach, actually.
Well, you can go ahead there. I honestly haven't really played much of that one. I think I played 5 minutes of it.
Okay.
So I played the Shining Force before that. So go ahead.
Okay. Well, this one, surprisingly, I have actually played and beaten, despite the fact that, aside from the first Phantasy Star, which is only a half example, I'm not really big into these hard dungeon crawlers that are just like the absolute basis that an RPG can possibly be, and it's unforgiving to the extent that there's almost nothing down there for you once you get there. You have to do everything back at the town, but I don't know why I got into this one. I don't know. Like Forneia said, it was just very approachable, and for someone like me who's generally very impatient, even if you could call this Babby's first dungeon crawler, that's perfect for someone with my level of tolerance for these types of games. So, I mean, I think I mostly played this due to its tenuous link to the Shining Force games in the Genesis, which I did want to play more, but I felt like I had to swallow this first, and I'm glad I did, because I ended up enjoying it, and, the devil's really in the details. It may not be too different from what most of these types of games are like, but this one just looked really nice. It played reasonably easy. I mean, apparently you can finish it in 10 hours, if even that, if you're good enough. So, yeah, it's just a relatively unpretentious, uncomplicated dungeon crawler that just hits the right amount of ease versus how grotesquely difficult these games sort of get, and it just caught me in, and I'm glad it did. Thank you.
No problem.
God damn it, this is going to be a wreck. From here on out, he's only going to do it for me, too. I'm special.
How about you, Kate?
Yeah, you're the acceptable target.
Yes.
Exactly.
Hey, you were the Third Moon's football for the longest time, so.
And still am to an extent, so. Maybe.
Anyway, how about you, Kate?
I've never played a Shining game, so someone else can take this.
Okay, so that basically brings it right back to me, and you all have heard already what I had to say about Shining in the Darkness. So let's just move on to the Shining Force series as a whole. Now, my brother, very big into Shining Force 1 and 2. So I did see him play those from time to time, and I was actually pretty amazed at the amount of characters you could accumulate in that. Both of them.
A lot.
Yeah. I remember there was one looked like some kind of a mole in a helmet or something. Or
Jogurt!
That's the guy.
The best character, objectively.
Yeah, Yogurt is basically like Climax's mascot character.
Aw, I didn't even know.
Well, I don't want to jump the gun, but the thing about him is that, like, he's, like, technically very weak, but if you beat an enemy with him, you get a Jogurt ring, which you can then equip on any of your party members, and it turns them into Jogurt as well, so you can just have an army of gophers gnawing at the enemy, and it's probably very impractical, and I've never actually done that, but I love the idea that you can do that at all.
Good.
That's just fun.
Just to kind of put a showcase of why this won't happen outside of someone doing it very specifically.
Mm-hmm.
If you have someone as Yogurt, they have 1 health. Period. The end.
Yeah, I mean, he's a placid, straight out joke character. Like, you can win with Dan Hibiki in Street Fighter Alpha 2. Here, RPGs aren't so merciful.
Yeah, that's true. Never been able to do much with Dan in Street Fighter, but that's beside the point.
What?
I don't think I've ever even actually played him, so. But let's go back to Shining Force.
I did.
I know you.
Of course I would. Yeah.
I secondary Dan.
Good deal. He was actually legitimately strong in Street Fighter 4. This is not the fighting game stream, but I just wanted to mention that.
Yeah, that's coming. So.
Yeah, absolutely.
All right, so who wants to go next about Shining Force?
I suppose I'll get my business out of the way first.
Okay.
I will just say this right here. I tried to play Shining Force 1 and 2, and I bounced really hard off of both of them. I do not like them. First of there's basically 2 points that cause me to just not want to play in the first place. The first is the fact that because of the kind of era that it kind of comes out and the hardware and etc. If you throw a spell and the spell has an AoE component, like it splashes out to neighboring tiles, because it is a tile-based map that you navigate your strategery upon, then the way the magic system is coded, you have to center all spells on a valid target. So you have to be targeting an enemy in the middle of the spell, which means that you could have a diamond shape arrangement of 4 jerks with nothing in the middle, and you can't fire upon the middle and catch all 4 of them. And that drives me insane. I cannot stand that level of tactical inelegance.
I can see where that would put you off.
Mm-hmm. Oh boy, howdy.
Yeah. So
I also felt like the game really wanted me to get into a fight, reach about the point where people were about to start dying, and then retreat and do the fight over again because you keep your resources and experience from doing so. And I'm just like over here going, I am not grinding like this in a strategy RPG.
Wow.
Maybe that was just me, but that's what it felt like it wanted from me.
Well, that's okay. I think I played the first one for a couple of minutes and was like, nope, not feeling this at all. And before we go any further, I just want to welcome 19 to the stream. So, welcome.
Hello.
Yeah.
Hello.
19 is a friend of mine, actually. I'm not sure if anyone else here knows him, but shout out to the Fats clan, from which we are from. And welcome to a stream where I'm probably not going to have much to say for a large chunk of it, but I do have something to say about Shining Force, at least. Snarb, I was for the longest time as well, no worries. But Forneia, did you have anything else you want to say?
That's pretty much it. That's about the point where my interest with the Shining branch of everything just kind of began and ended very quickly.
Oh, that's a shame, because I really do like both of the games. That said, I do wonder if they also kind of have a Babby's First strategy RPG feel about them that would make people wonder if I am really surface level, quote unquote, basic bitch at this genre because I am too dumb to understand anything more complicated than these games.
Well,
but I'm probably being self-conscious, so.
I think part of it is that for the longest time, Fire Emblem existed during the 90s, but most Fire Emblem games didn't come out of Japan until the 7th game. So
Yep.
outside of Japan, Shining Force got a lot more attention, so that's part of why that had more attention at the time.
Yeah, and of course that the Genesis in general was more popular in the West to boot, so but like, you know, the SNES was kind of getting the reputation as being the quote-unquote RPG console at the time, so, you know, I mean, that's not fair to the Genesis, but when an RPG, even a strategy RPG like Shining Force makes the waves it did, of course, a lot of people are going to be interested in it. And, again, like Shining in the Darkness, I found it, you know, relatively uncomplicated, and I quickly got an inkling of what characters I should be using and shouldn't be. I mostly just found it fun. The soundtrack in this game is goddamn fantastic. And you get some really neat characters, especially late in the game, like, as I recall, a dragon, a samurai, and a ninja, a cyborg at some point. You know, awesome shit like that. That's just the first game. I think the second game was actually a little less crazy with its cast, which I did find a bit of a shame. I might actually like the first one more, but I still found 2 to be very good. Oh, darn, what else can I say? Oh, yeah, right. Also, the first game has the almighty Domingo, a floating squid creature who can fly over any part of the map and blast enemies with his very powerful ice spells. So, Domingo's awesome. I guess his
completely forgot
equivalent...
about that thing until now.
Oh, wow, you remember Domingo! Yes. He's the best character, objectively. Along with Yogurt. They're both the best characters. Nah, I'm just kidding. The second game had the turtle. Yeah, the one who I think was called Kiwi by default, but I think you could actually name him whatever you wanted. I remember him being somewhat impractically slow, but at least very powerful. The second game also had the Phoenix named Peter, who was kind of basically the second game's equivalent to Domingo, but a little less busted. Albeit still very, very good to play. Now, yeah, my memory's a little fuzzy on the specifics. I just really remember liking both of them a lot. Except for one mission in the first against this, like, witch that you fought in some sort of circus. That mission was raging bullshit. But, you know, otherwise, I think they're good games. And again, I haven't played very many games like these, so maybe my knowledge is lacking, but I like this one for what it was. Yes.
So, Great White North, how about you?
Well, that's actually how I got into the Shining Force series in the first place, was playing part 1 at my friend's place, and I enjoyed it. I like the idea of the multitude of characters, especially coming from my playing normal RPGs such as Final Fantasy or Dragon Warrior, where you have like a smaller cast of characters and whatnot. I like the tactic style of it. However, I do agree with Forneia with the spell casting. It did get a little annoying at times when you're trying to place that spell to get the area of effect. Kind of annoyed me at times, but I went through it, finished it. I found part 2 a lot more appealing, more colorful characters. The music was better in my opinion, and I liked the gameplay more. But I think the still didn't really get well with the spells. But my favorite character from part 2 was the rat dude. Becomes a ninja.
Slade. Yes, no, he was good.
Slade.
He was good. Absolutely.
I remember him because that was the opening scene. If you start the game up and don't touch the start button for the menu, you actually see him doing his thing. So you get a nice introduction to that character, even though he's not the main guy. And then I played part 3, which is an unfinished storyline. Kind of annoyed me.
Yeah.
Fantastic game, and I loved it. Finished it. And I got mad because I want more.
Yeah,
but,
the whole Hooger Broog about us only getting the first part of 3 when there were like, I think 2 more games in Japan that I don't know if they ever even got translated in an unofficial capacity. That just
There are
really
unofficial patches
blows.
out there.
Good, very good.
Yeah.
But unfortunately, I never got around to playing 3, mostly because Saturn emulation has really sucked until now, and that I would also have to play 3 games does sound a little bit too laborious for me, but I am at least familiar with one thing from 3, if nothing else. Probably a thing that everyone knows is a voice clip of one of your characters saying, "Now bear my Arctic blast."
Yes.
I'm pretty sure that's the one that had that. So yeah,
I am not familiar with that.
But I didn't know it was part 1 of 3 when I first played it.
yeah,
That's when I found out, and then I got really annoyed, and
yeah.
nothing
Valid.
came to fruition, at least in a normal localization sense. So I stopped playing the Shining Force series as a whole in that sense. But it made, after getting into Phantasy Star 4, I wanted to find more hidden RPGs for the Genesis, and while I was happy that Shining Force was a very different take and was my first foray into the tactical RPG, to which to this day I never played a Fire Emblem, but I will be soon after hearing the good things about that series from you and everyone else, and we'll get into that, but that's a whole different topic in itself. But yeah.
Feel free to
I
dip
guess
into
that's
my
my
stream on Friday.
yeah, but that's my small experience with at least the Shining Force, because I know there's other games in the series, such as Shining the Holy Ark and other things like that.
This series went on for a damn long while, actually.
It's still going to this day in technical sense.
Amazingly so.
Yeah.
I know that there was a Shining Force CD for the Sega CD that, if I'm not mistaken, it's actually an enhanced re-release of the 2 Game Gear games, apparently?
I'm not too familiar with that one.
I think you're right, Mike.
Yeah, I really need to get on those. They seem... It seems really damn cool that those got a remake, and, shit, what other RPGs are the... Oh, Lunar, right. For the... But, no, I should really get on that. I forget if I actually have a copy of Shining the Holy Ark, but I'd like to get on that one some point.
That one's kind of a dungeon crawler, but I still enjoyed it.
Yeah, no, that one's more of a direct sequel to Shining in the Darkness, if I'm not mistaken. So
That's my understanding, yes.
Yes.
Oh, I didn't know that, so...
I would like to get on that.
Kind of a sequel in the first place, more so? That's funny.
Uh-huh.
Huh.
But, very interesting series, to say the least. Maybe not as universally, explosively popular as Phantasy Star is, but definitely games worth checking into, in my opinion.
Mm-hmm.
All right. Before you move on to the next one, Kate, if I recall, you said you never played a Shining game, right?
The closest that I've ever come to that is when I got a Sega Genesis Mini back when those were first released in 2019 or so. I tested out various games on it, and I tested out the first Shining Force for 5 minutes. I didn't even get to combat, but it seemed neat, and I told myself I would play more of it later, but I haven't gotten around to it yet. I'll do it someday.
I understand, ma'am. That is that way too much on my end, especially in the RPG sense. I think I explained what happened with Lunar last stream, so...
Yeah, I am playing some RPGs right now, but I've just got a lot on my plate at the moment. Maybe someday I'll do the Shining stuff.
I mean, the latest Zelda's just released. That's pretty much going to be my game plan for the next 3 weeks, I'm guessing, but yeah.
Oh, I have no idea when I'll be playing that.
Well, you have fun with that, Mike. I'll be busy playing Radiant Silverhand.
You get your own line, Rob.
Damn right.
Before we move on, Mr. North, I had a question.
North or there? Oh, okay.
Yes, that one. So you have played, Shining Force 1 and 2, as you stated. So I would just like clarification. I would appreciate that. As I said, my interpretation was you're supposed to just kind of go until you hit a meat wall, and then you have to stop and then do grindery for a while by abusing the aggress spell to retreat and redo the fights and etc. until your people are sufficiently capable of making it through. Does that hold water, or is that just me playing it when I'm young and being bad at it?
Uh, Honestly, I think I did a little bit of that grinding, at least in the first one, if I remember right. I think it's a little bit more lenient in part 2,
Hmm.
if I remember right. But it's been a while since I played them.
Fair
Um,
enough.
Now, with the grinding part, if you really are good at it, there is ways to work on it in that battle. But at the time, I wasn't that good. I mean, it was my first foray into tactics RPG, so like,
Right.
yeah. No, I think you're kind of on the money with the grinding. I remember doing a battle so far and then thought, "Holy crap, what am I going through? I got to get out of here," and then redo it, and at least you keep your experience and whatnot. But
Yeah,
I'll say
because
one thing that you can boost up their class. Like I think after level 10 or something like that, you can boost them up. But
yeah,
yeah.
because I didn't know that that spell existed until after I played it.
Oh, okay.
So I just kind of played through and everyone got wiped the hell out. And so it's like, okay, well, we're back in our base and everyone's fucking dead. Do the mission again.
Yeah. And
Not
I
a
can
good
see why that's
impression.
yeah, for sure, definitely daunting, or doesn't make you want to go back out there.
By the way, you need to pay for all the resurrections. What do you mean? How am I
I
supposed to...
forgot about that. Yes.
Yeah, so it's basically soft locked me, functionally speaking, because, like, I wasn't paying that.
No, I don't blame you.
I remember that too from when my brother was playing it. But speaking of which, he was also very heavy into the Breath of Fire series, which is the next one we're going to cover.
Oh boy. This
I
is one where I have some things to say.
Now, I didn't really watch him play that one a lot, but I watched him here and there, so I don't really remember much though. So, all right, well, go ahead and lead us off then.
Oh boy. So Breath of Fire is a series that properly spans 5 entries with a mobile gacha game as a 6th entry that no one talks about because it crashed and burned turbo hard. Um, the first 3 games are directly connected. The 4th game is not really connected, but it is thematically similar, and the 5th game is drastically different. And honestly, that's probably my favorite one.
I know what you're talking about.
Oh, I know you do.
I actually do too, surprisingly.
I have no clue.
So, the very first game, uh, in every Breath of Fire game, rather, you control a young man named Ryu who has blue hair and wears some interpretation of black pants and a white shirt, usually with a cape, but not always. Um, Actually, it's more looks like blue pants. Anyway, and there will always be a party member who is a winged lady named Nina, and these are just kind of like, there's always a Link and always a Zelda in, this series, and they're basically they've got that kind of thing going on. It's never the same person, they may or may not be related, etc. The big kick about the whole series is that Ryu, particularly given the name, is always in some interpretation of the game a dragon who, is predominantly in humanoid form but can transform properly into, a big reptile of bad breath death. And so the series is mostly about guiding Ryu through trying efforts of overcoming some kind of something that has it out for the dragons because the dragons are dangerous in some respect. Either it's, a god who thinks that they're really dangerous, or there's, political leaders who see dragons as gods and are just like, all right, well, we can't be having none of that. Let's get rid of this. Oh no, this was a terrible idea. Or something like that. There's always some reason why, despite being, a living dragon, is actually, a complication and not just a license to sit upon a hoard of treasure until, someone walks into the door.
Yeah, this is way more than I already knew about the game. Or the series in general.
A particularly interesting piece of trivia about it. So the series is a Capcom production. The very first game, Breath of Fire 1, actually had its localization outsourced to Squaresoft and was translated by Ted Woolsey.
Excellent. A legend for his time.
And it really, really shows when you get to Breath of Fire 2, which was not. Breath of Fire 2 is infamous for how horribly train wreck its localization is. If you've never heard of Legends of Localization, which is run by Clyde Mandolin, also known as Tomato, we mentioned him last time we were talking about Mother 3. He wrote up a big thing about that game, and that game is just kind of it is an essay in localization etiquette and why you should actually be certain to pay properly for it and not just assume it will work.
So we're talking something on the level of, you invaders, get you the hot bullets or shotgun to die.
Not too far off.
Not far off, honestly. Let's put it this way: there's a lot of yes/no things that are flipped.
Wow, really?
Jesus Christ,
Really?
that's whoa. How that like I know this is a dumb internet phrase right now, but if ever the meme "you had one job" ever applied to anything, like. How do you just botch something so fundamental like that?
I can only imagine that at some point, whoever was tasked with this whole thing just looked at Height and EA and went with them as like, okay, this one is 2 characters in Japanese, this one's 3 characters in Japanese. So therefore, we will go for the 2-lettered one for yes and the 3-lettered one for no.
Oh boy.
I thought it was bad when Capcom went and flipped the disc art on the Strider 2 release in the US.
The funny thing is I actually bought that game for a friend of mine at the time, and we kind of noticed that.
Nice.
had the copy of so-called Strider 2.
I mean, that one's at least kind of moot because you still do get both games.
Yeah, that's a funny thing, but it
really
doesn't impact
is.
anything realistically. It's gonna you pop it in, you're just like, wait, what? Then you put in the other one, it's like, oh, okay, I get it. They goofed. But this is Breath of Fire 2's translation is absolutely dreadful, and it's probably the best game.
Yeah, that's a shame. That. Well,
So,
not the. Go ahead.
I'm not going to call it a shame necessarily. One, there is a fan retranslation out there by an individual known as Ryusui.
Yeah.
I've actually had the pleasure of, speaking with fairly regularly at some points or others.
Yeah, he's actually the brother of a good friend of mine. So,
And while I prefer the train wreck translation myself, I am absolutely not going to fault anyone for going with that translation instead. I actually had some input on it at a few points.
Nice. Actually, go ahead.
Almost there.
Go.
I will say, despite the fact that the translation is the hottest mess. It manages to have narrative gravitas that outperforms the train wreck capacity and still leaves you going, oh shit, I feel things.
Nice.
So I find it very impressive that it works so well on a fundamental level that even one of the worst translations in official release history manages to it shines beyond that. It overcomes that.
Nice. I do want to ask for anyone playing the game the first time, would you actually recommend first timers actually do go with the crap translation just for, like, because it's part of the experience, or should they go for Ryusui's retranslation first?
I'm not going to weigh in on that one. That's very much a personal preference kind of thing. Like,
Fair enough.
like if you want just to like kind of understand what it is that Ryusui's efforts is going away from, then
Oh,
check out what Clyde Mandelin's piece is, because
yes.
boy howdy, he goes into detail on that one.
Oh, yeah.
Oh boy.
Nice.
Boy,
Absolute
it's
feel
great.
good.
Yeah. All right, so Great White North.
Okay, well, I did not know that history about part 2, but still, it is my favorite in the series as well. I just thought it was a superior game to the first in a lot of ways, with the music, the characters, especially Cat. Cat was awesome.
Yep.
But the reason why I played part 1 was literally because Square's name was on it. I didn't think Capcom was, known for RPGs at the time. I played a lot of their Mega Man games and whatnot, and some of their Street Fighter, and then here comes Breath of Fire. I'm like, oh, Square, it's new RPG. I did not realize it was going to be Capcom. But
they do have a little bit of precedent with Destiny of an Emperor, and even possibly counting Sweet Home on the Famicom. But yeah, it normally wasn't their dig either. But
that's true. They did do Destiny of an Emperor, and that game is fantastic.
It's one I need to play someday too. Yes,
it's really, really good. I play it once a year.
Yeah, being a bit of a Three Kingdoms nerd myself, I really should have gotten on it by now.
It's definitely a different take on that, but I definitely love the Breath of Fire series. Well, the first 2 especially. I did play part 3 on the PlayStation. Never really got into part 4, and oh boy, Dragon Quarter. Oh boy. What an interesting take on that game.
I adore Dragon Quarter so much, and I'm like over here fighting everyone who was like, that's not actually a Breath of Fire game, because and I'm just like, you shut up.
Well, before we go there, I I just want to step back a bit and ask a question about 4 specifically. Some seem to claim that 4 might actually be the best of the series, while others seem to really not like it all that much. At least that's the impression I got. What makes it so outlandishly different from the first 3, if anything?
I'd say the art style.
The art style is the big one. It's very, very artistically distinct from just kind of games in general.
Yeah, it's a lot darker compared to the first 3, and I hate to say it, but it does, just on a cursory glance, it does seem to have a little bit of a case of real is brown going for it. I don't know, is that too far off?
That's not really what I would say is the crux of it.
Okay.
It's been a long time since I've actually played the game, but if I recall correctly, I don't think any of the sprites have outlines, like black outlines. Like, how like Samurai Jack has, that kind of visual styling going?
Yes,
but
absolutely.
Sprites.
Nice.
Yeah, it's definitely different from part 3, especially.
Yeah.
And everything's very pastel in their colorization.
That's the best way to, yeah.
Yeah, it's like everyone, there's like very pastel sprite work with, minimal usage of like detailing lines and whatnot. So it looks very distinct, and this is contrasted upon all of the backdrops being 3D modeled. So, you have 3D environments with these very pastel and kind of, artistic looking sprites and artwork. So it definitely looks distinct compared to a lot of games in general. Like even now, I genuinely can't think of any other game that looks like it.
I see.
So I can definitely see someone being put off by it.
Okay.
As far as gameplay and whatnot goes, it's very similar to what Breath of Fire 3 does in concept, but I feel it executes on it much better. I
Okay.
know that some people like 3 a lot. I don't get that at all. I hate that game. I think it's the worst one in the 5.
Okay, so you think 3's the shit one? Yeah, I might have heard that too. That there seems to be a lot of debate.
There's a lot of
between the two
divisiveness.
PS1 installments in particular, and I really don't know why, but I never actually played any of the games, so you know better than I
The
would.
only one I never hear anyone standing up for is the first game.
The first game, from what I understand, is very vanilla, even for RPG standards. I mean, it was really just Capcom finding their footing with a very 101 entry into the genre at the time.
I don't know if I would even agree with that. Like, it has like a lot of really neat set pieces, and it has like a party member fusion mechanic.
Which is really cool.
Forneia, I hate to say it, but Snarbu says that you've gotten a little quiet.
Oh, How am I now?
Oh, that sounds better. Yeah.
All right. Yeah, I just kind of drifted away from my mic.
Hey, before we go on, just wanted to welcome
Yeah.
both Brandon and Heihan to the stream.
Hello.
Hi.
Yo.
Hi.
Brandon has a couple questions we'll get to in a moment, but go ahead.
Alrighty. Oh, where was I? Oh, right. So yeah, the first one has a lot of neat set pieces and mechanical concepts. The thing is that it's very easy to bypass a lot of the challenge of the game, and when you are not able to do that, you're in a scenario where it is absolutely unreasonable. Like, it does a neat thing where, you know how a lot of games will have key items that don't do anything?
Yep.
Well, the first one you pick up is, like, the Earth Key. The Earth Key basically casts the Quake spell for free. And, oh, hey, I can turn into a dragon. This is a bad plan. Just hold up the key, idiot. And this works way too well for, like, 30% of the game or something. Probably more. And so, like, the dragon transformation thing that you do in that one is for the whole fight with no upkeep or anything else. So you just, for a pittance of MP, become ridiculously strong and are never really threatened. And the whole game kind of ends up being very easy as a result, except for some segments where you do not have Ryu in your team and you have one bad character and you're going through a high-end area and dying is dying.
Okay, that sounds like the game is just like it's not trying to challenge you so much as it just is trying to deliberately handicap you just to be an asshole. I don't like
it's
it.
It's a narrative thing. There's
ooh.
like you people can't breathe underwater. I can, so I will go over here. Oh shit, the underwater is terrifying.
You remember that?
You lose, Aquaman, again.
Pretty much. So yeah, it's not like the first one's bad. It's that it's not very well thought through on a mechanical level.
It's a very rough gem, uncut gem, from what I understand.
Its shining points are not as shining as it could be, and most of what you're going to be dealing with is on the way too easy to be interesting side, except when it isn't.
Gotcha.
Well, let's see here. Kate, do you have anything to say about this one at all?
No, I don't. I do have to say that we're almost an hour into our 2-hour stream, and we've covered like 2 series out of over 10 that we have planned, so we need to seriously pick up the pace a lot. Unless we want to do a part 3.
Did you at least want to talk about Dragon Quarter? I'm sorry.
Dragon Quarter is neat. Screw the haters.
Yeah.
That's what I have to say about it.
Yeah,
I want to finish it. That's all I'll say to that.
Dragon Quarter.
Okay, I have one more thing I will say. I finished it on my first run without using the give up option and without dying. Get on my level.
You definitely did well then. Oh my god.
Jiminy.
Also, I didn't consult any guides or anything. 100% fresh playthrough.
Well, you're a lot better at this genre than I am, man.
That's up.
Yeah. I will say that Dragon Quarter kind of has a bit of a Groundhog Day bent to it. Kind of, sort of, but again, I haven't played it, but what I read from it sounds very fascinating, and the fact that it takes place in a more modern setting especially seems to sell it, because I'm not as big on high fantasy most of the time, so of the series, that one definitely interests me the most, but since I haven't actually played it, we should probably shut up and get on to the next one.
Yeah,
It's good too.
We're going to pick up the pace here a little bit, but before that, a word from our sponsor. Thank you.
Affleck, yeah, exactly.
No, don't forget.
All right. So, what
Jiminy.
we've got left to cover? Well, we could scramble things around a little bit. For instance, I am very unfamiliar with the Tales series.
Uh-oh.
I
Oh,
have
boy.
played 2 entries. The very first one, Tales of Fantasia, and the one that, at the time I played it, was the most recent, which is Berseria. I strongly recommend Berseria, because,
Yeah.
boy howdy.
That's a fun
That
game.
is a villain campaign.
Ah.
That is absolutely a villain campaign done correct.
Nice. Yeah, I've heard you recommend Berseria to me personally also, and it sounds like it really does flip a lot of the series on its head. But,
And it knows what it's doing too. Like, it manages to have this basically cast of characters that in any other game would absolutely be either the antagonists or the rivals or something like that. But they're the lead characters and it works.
excellent.
All right.
Well, that certainly sounds like a subversion to just about every other Tales game I've heard, and this is my incredibly shallow, uninformed, and possibly biased and rude perspective that I can give, but I'm sorry. From the outside looking in, most of the Tales games just look like the absolute most textbook shonen anime junk possible. That's probably a really short-sighted way of putting that, but they have just not
shonen.
Oh.
Anime definitely, shonen not really.
Anime, yeah, absolutely. I don't know, like Fantasia was the first one, that much I know. There was a Symphonia, there was a Valencia. No, that's not it. I mean, like, apparently the
Tanka
fights
over here playing Tales of the Vatican.
Now that one I would actually play if the final boss is the Pope, because you know how these
that's called
RPGs
Assassin's
always go.
Creed 2.
I don't want to play an Ubisoft game, even if it's apparently the best one still. But I really only know one thing about Tales of Fantasia, and that's apparently that a character named Arch fucks like a tiger. Did we want to discuss that? I know it's a translation thing. It's actually covered once again on. It's actually covered on Tomato's site again. Legends localization.
Yes, it is. Once again, this is fan translation nonsense done by people who took shortcuts and just kind of wanted to working designs it a little bit.
Ooh, that's never a good thing.
Okay.
Bill Clinton.
Basically.
All right. So, how about Grey White North? What do you got to say about the Tales series?
Okay, well, I played a lot of Tales games, but I'm not going to go into it.
I apologize what I said about Tales before, if you're a fan. I know I'm very uninformed. But I would like to ask you, are they really anime to a point that anyone who is pointedly not an anime fan might not dig them?
Oh, they're through
Some
and
of
through
them.
JRPGs.
Okay, well that's another fair point.
I'd say that there's enough of them that one of them will probably work for you.
Okay,
Yeah,
that's a good way of
yeah.
putting it.
There's 15
I'll
plus
copy
in the
that.
series. I forget
Yeah.
the exact number, but
It's
You
a
got
long
options.
runner. Yeah.
if I remember right, it is the third longest series in Japan now when it comes to RPGs or something like that.
Below DQ and FF.
Oh, it's up there. Like I said, there's over 15 plus
Nice.
games. The first one I've ever played, though, was Tales of Destiny, though, on the PlayStation, which I enjoyed. It's a kind of a weird side-scrolling battle system. Not quite like what they're doing nowadays with Berseria and all that, where it's more of a 3D environment. I enjoyed it. I played Tales of Destiny 2, even though it's not really that. It's supposed to be called Tales of Eternia, if I remember right. But my favorite one is the Tales of Symphonia, just because it was the first really 3D one that I played, and I just enjoyed the heck out of it. But the battle system's really cool. It's like this XY sort of thing, and you can play multiplayers on it too, so you can play with friends. So that's another plus for them.
I gather Symphonia was kind of a newbie boom for the series, which is weird because that didn't seem to happen too much in the 6th gen for a lot of series, especially for RPGs.
Oh, you want to know the best part is?
Yeah.
Symphonia is the direct sequel to Fantasia.
Wow, crazy.
Okay, that I didn't know.
Isn't it a prequel?
It's one of them. It's directly... Okay, let me rephrase. It's directly related to Fantasia. And the only one that is.
Yeah, and Tales of Symphonia has its own sequel. Such as, same thing with Berseria, is technically a sequel or prequel, if you really want to think about it, to Zestiria.
Yep.
But that's a whole different ballgame.
All right, how about you, Kate? Have you played any of these?
My Tales experience is relatively limited. Years ago, I beat Tales of Symphonia on the GameCube, which I kind of had mixed feelings about. I did enjoy the combat, which sort of reminded me of Super Smash Bros., but in the context of random RPG encounters. I didn't particularly like a lot of the characters, though. The main protagonist, Lloyd, in particular, got on my nerves. It's not exactly an uncommon thing to have a naive protagonist, but Lloyd in this game felt exceptionally naive to me in a way that was pretty grating. It just kind of negatively impacted my experience. I do have to say that I actually remember really liking Tales of Symphonia's direct sequel, Dawn of the New World. That game's overall story and characters clicked with me more. From what I recall, its protagonist Emil seemed to deal with more of an inner emotional turmoil over the course of his character arc, which resonated with me more than Lloyd in the first Symphonia. So, in spite of the lessened scope, such as no freely explorable open world, Dawn of the New World clicked with me quite nicely. And pretty recently, I did start playing Tales of Grace's F for the PlayStation 3. Since it's a relatively newer game, I won't say a ton about it, but so far I finished the prologue, and it seems interesting. I'm not sure what to make about the story, but I have heard people praise its combat in particular, so I'll see how I end up feeling as I go.
Okay. I'll add to that the combat's really good in that one. The story is going to be a little bit more simplistic, I guess, until like the technical DLC part of it. But it's not a bad one. The one I do recommend is Tales of Xillia. That's one of the best ones.
Oh yeah, I hear people really love that one.
Yeah.
Now,
I'll have to give it a shot.
Before I continue, I have to ask Brandon, what do you mean by Uncle Touchy's Husky Man Monthly? I mean, Uncle Touchy, I think, is a Patton Oswalt reference, but what the heck are you referring to, man?
I have no idea what you're talking about.
Yeah.
All right, well, while we're waiting for Brandon to answer, I actually lied when I said he didn't know anything about Tales. It turned out there was something I knew. And
oh my gosh.
I know. And it actually occurred to me after I said that. It's like, wait a minute. So I headed over to West Mansion and pulled up the trivia section, and right there at the very bottom is an entry for Tales of Eternia. Apparently, and I've got a screenshot of the character there, Rick from Splatterhouse appears in the Aphrid's Tomb dungeon to bar the player from advancing through certain doorways.
Oh my god.
That's amazing. Oh my gosh.
I have got to see this.
Yep. Yes. West Mansion trivia, very bottom.
Well then.
That's super cool.
Trivia page.
Yeah.
Tales of... Wait, I must be on the wrong trivia page right now. Shit.
It's only one trivia page.
The page I'm on says Trivia 2 on it.
Wait a minute.
Trivia harder.
Wait, the first
You
trivia.
have to go
Okay,
to
I see.
arcades articles/official.
Okay. It's just. Well, I appreciate the Patton Oswalt reference, but I was definitely thrown for a loop. Although, the way you mentioned that, I think you were talking about one of the Cho Aniki games.
I still don't know what's going on.
Sorry, something Brandon's saying in the chat.
Yeah, I see, but I
Tanga's
don't
having a
understand.
moment.
We're getting irrelevant. We should probably move on to the next thing. Sorry.
All right, but did you see that that Rick screenshot?
I do. It's really cute. In fact, hey, I'll even link it in the chat for everyone's convenience. There.
All right.
If anyone wanted to see it.
Yep, there it is. All right, so now see, we blew through that in just under 10 minutes. So
Yay.
let's go ahead and switch things up a little more. Does anyone know anything about the Star Ocean series?
I know that the developers of Star Ocean and Tales of were originally in the same kind of organization, and then they split off and became Tri-Ace
Okay.
because they got really fed up of dealing with Namco.
Huh.
Understandable.
Yeah.
I think Rob can relate to that.
Oh, believe me, I can. At least at one point in my life, anyway.
Yeah.
Go
It's
ahead and
small
strangle
world.
the damn thing in
Yes.
the cradle. Sorry, that's a subject for an entirely different roundtable. Anyway.
Yes.
Yes, Star Ocean is kind of like the bastard child of the Tales of series in a way, and it kind of gets that respect as well in that, I'll be honest, I've heard people say that 2 is good. I've never heard anyone say that any others have been actually good. Evidently, like the most recent one has really good fighting, and everything else about it is terrible, and the rest of the entries are really bad. Like the chief among like things about this series that I know from in a semi outside perspective is that a lot of people find like the big twists or plot developments or whatever to be incredibly stupid. The ending for 3 being particularly infamous.
Yep.
And the protagonist of 4 is Edge Maverick.
Edge Maverick.
That's their name or their
Edge
behavior
Maverick.
or both.
Let's put it this way: a
That's a
friend
cool
of mine
name.
and I, for our own amusement, went to the Steam page when tags first got released, and we made a tag called Edge Maverick and just tagged the game with it.
For some reason, that reminds me of what a couple I used to know named their son. And I hope for his sake, he grew up to be a race car driver or a pro wrestler. They named him Dallas Nitro.
Jesus Christ! That is either cruelty or empowerment. I can't tell which.
I didn't
Maybe
really
both?
sit there and go like, you guys want to rethink that? I was like, Dallas Nitro. All right, well, you guys do you. Poor kid.
Wow.
All right, but
I mean, that is a pretty cool name when you think about it.
It is like,
I'll raise you one more game show host.
game show host, that might work too. Like maybe American Gladiators or something like that.
Something like that, yeah.
yeah, absolutely.
Or it could be the announcer in Smash TV.
Big money, big prizes. I love it. I wish we were talking Smash TV. Anyway, Star Ocean, another blind spot in my end. I can only say 2 things about it. But first I wanted to ask Forneia, not even the first game's all that well respected? I thought it was to some extent.
So the big notability I know about the first game is that it is an SNES title, or rather Super Famicom title, because we didn't get it over here officially.
Yeah.
I don't think that's ever been rectified. I'm not certain.
I thought we got a
The
remake on
PSP
the...
remake.
We got the
Yeah,
PS.
First
Remake?
Departure.
Okay, alright.
Yeah.
All
You
right.
can
I
also
know
get it on the PS.
That one's eluded me, but the big thing that people actually cared about that one was a lot of people wanted to emulate it at the time, and it didn't because of the way the graphics were arranged. and emulators were not equipped to deal with that. There were like 3 games, one of which was Star Ocean, one of which was Street Fighter Alpha 2, and then the third one I don't remember, that all had their graphics arranged using this particular methodology.
It wasn't Tengai Makio Zero, was it?
I don't know. I don't actually know what it was. It's been way too damn long. But because of that limitation, no one could actually play those games until that puzzle was solved, and the first emulator to do that was SNES 9X.
Dang.
Yeah, before we go on, welcome to the chat, Ashburner X. And
welcome.
Those are some names.
Ash is my assistant in my streaming efforts. Hello, Ash.
Hey, Ash.
Nice.
Yeah.
So yeah, that's the big thing that I know about Star Ocean 1. As far as like the games themselves, they have kind of a sort of choose your own adventure vibe where you are given decisions that actually mean things and affect meaningful change. Like, okay, I'm going to go off and go hunt this treasure, and you can be like, hey, I want to come with you, or just kind of let them go. And this will change how the game goes, because it's like, okay, you can either go with this person to their treasure hunt, which takes you to a place you have no business being, you will get thoroughly destroyed, you idiot. Or you go off and end up in the company of someone that does not like them because of things they did in the past, so they kind of end up being mutually exclusive party members. Unless you do specific things, making specific decisions, which are going to allow this, friendship to mend, at least to the degree of joining for a common cause. And that's just one interaction amongst many. You can entirely miss characters because you don't take the plot in the direction where you will ever see them. So it's a very, divergent kind of narrative, which is, it's conceptually very interesting, and I don't think that the first game is bad in that sense. I did find playing it to be kind of a drag, though.
Sharon has asked, is Star Ocean an easy RPG?
I'm going to go with probably not something I would recommend someone who is new to things playing.
Yeah. That's the impression I get for Tri-Ace in general. I just want to say 2 things about Star Ocean. It is mostly a huge blind spot for me, except for these 2 things I can say. One, even I know about how infamous the big fat twist in Star Ocean 3 is. And even, I don't know how I caught wind of it, but even I had to shake my head and say, this is really fucking stupid. Oh my god.
Yeah.
That's probably poor judgment without actually having played the game, but I imagine even with the context building up to it, it's a massive blindside, so...
it definitely gets interesting when you get to that part. You're like, what? But you just want to know what it's going to be next, the absurdity of the game, and yeah.
The only other thing to know about Star Ocean is that it kind of guest starred, or like a special boss or so, and a stage and dungeon themed around them, guest starred in the post game of the other Tri-Ace RPG, Valkyrie Profile, which I actually have played in full and is actually a really damn good game in my opinion.
Now those bosses are hard.
Yes. Oh, yeah. Absolutely. I mean, they're post game. They're basically like Emerald and Ruby weapon, the super bosses practically. Although you do get 3 extremely powerful party members also at that point to help you out. But I wish we were talking about Valkyrie Profile instead, because I have absolutely nothing else to say about Star Ocean.
I'm over here shaking my head at your super boss choice.
I'm sorry. It was the first thing I could think of off the top of my head. What, you want me to say Ozma?
No, Shinryu and Omega.
Oh, okay. I'll take the L here. You're right. I'm sorry.
Wait, Ozma?
Yeah, that's super boss of Final Fantasy IX that fucking sucks and is a total roulette wheel of a boss. Fuck you. I want Zidane out of my fucking party. You got to... Okay, I'll shut up there.
And to get to that boss, it takes a while.
I hate him so much.
The only Ozma I know is one from the Oz books, so shows you how much you know about that.
Oh, okay.
Oh,
Maybe it was a reference to that, but yeah.
I think so.
Great Way North.
well, I have played just about every one of them, other than I haven't played much of the newest one, which I think is called Divine Force. The only ones I've actually finished though was part 3. So I know the whole twist and how everything comes to play at the end of it, and I'm like, what kind of game am I playing? And then I finished part 4, which is The Last Hope, and technically it's a prequel because the way the twist is. But anyway, yeah. I do like the gameplay. I like the idea of the whole choose your own adventure, so to speak, because you can meet up with different characters in one way and then other characters in another way. However, you better hope you are prepared if you go the wrong route. There is a couple routes that are just a little hard, but you can get there if you play it right. Music's pretty good for the series. I've always enjoyed that. But yeah. Yeah, I guess that's the most I can say about it. Because I only finished 2 out of the 6 now games of the series. Yeah, what I can say to that.
Yeah, well, it's more than I could say. But how about you, Kate? Ever
All I
play
can
any
say
of those?
about the... Go ahead.
I've never played a Star Ocean game. It's a series that I plan to play at some point. I think I have access to most of the games at this point. I just need to find the time to try them.
All right, but you've never played a High Five.
High five.
Okay,
All I
well,
can say is that I was immensely dismayed that the chess wizard from the 5th game is evidently really fucking annoying. I'm the
Okay,
one
well,
person
I
who
don't
actually
much
thought that outfit was really cool.
Oh, that's a shame. I'll have to look that up.
all right. Hey, we're making good time here. So
I told you I don't have as much to say about these.
right.
I have even less.
You know, Mike, I'm not so sure.
Okay, I've had more to say than Kate so far. I'm really surprised at that. I'm sorry, Kate. That's no slight to you. I just am picking up whatever few wow, this chess lady really does have a design on her. Holy shit!
Huh.
That's very remarkable. I must say.
Evidently, she's really annoying, and that makes me very sad because I like that outfit a lot.
That's a shame. God damn.
Well, anyway, moving on. Then there's the Wild Arms series. Now, I think someone feel free to correct me if I'm wrong. There's actually a reference to the PlayStation Run and Gun Gunner's Heaven in that.
I've never heard of this.
I could
don't
not
know.
tell you anything. I've never played Wild Arms anything.
Gunner's Heaven is awesome. I'll say that much. But
It is.
I think that they reference the 2 main characters from Gunner's Heaven. Like they named a couple characters in Wild Arms that I remember reading that somewhere.
Yeah, it was Axel Sonics and Luca Hetfield, I believe.
Yes, that's them.
Any relation to the lead singer of Metallica?
Quite possibly the guys who created it were inspired. I mean, I've seen that happen before with like stuff like Bastard.
Oh yeah. They had a character who was pretty much a wholesale King Diamond reference, as I remember.
They also had a joke character named Bon Jovinia.
Yes!
was
You,
great.
you stupid Jersey scumbag! Fucking goddamn it, I hate Bon Jovi.
So do I. Anyway,
Anyway, I know that hang on, my brain scrambled. I know diddly jack about Wild Arms. I think, like, the super boss has a weird name, like Ragu O Ragula, whatever the fuck that means.
oh my god, I forgot about that.
That is literally all I know about Wild Arms. I know absolutely nothing else, so
I
pass.
only know one thing, and it's nothing to do with the game itself.
Hmm?
If you look into the soundtrack data in Legend of Legaia, the fighting theme from Wild Arms is in there.
Cool.
I think it was used as like a test track, and they just never removed it.
Legend of Legaia I never played it, but it always struck me as being a rather interesting. It's like kind of like the system is like fighting game inputs, right?
Just
something
think of
like that.
Lisa dial inputs, but in a PlayStation RPG.
Ooh,
Interesting.
yeah. That game always seemed pretty fascinating to me. More fascinating than Wild Arms, which seems like one of the very first RPGs of the 5th generation, and it kind of shows from what I understand. So
Yeah, I
I
can't
don't know.
comment on the games themselves. That's the
Yeah, I
one
got
tidbit that
nothing.
I've ever known about it.
That's really cool. But
Now, Great Way North.
Yeah, I don't know that.
You sound like
Uh,
you may have played some of the Wild Arms games.
I have. I played part 1, very little of part 2. I played 3, 4, and 5, but not the remakes. So part 1 is very westerny. That's the whole gimmick of it, is that you're in a western style RPG, and you can choose your protagonist. Sort of like you can play any of the main characters at any time in the beginning, and then they all converge together. That I remember. And there's some nifty ideas that you can use, like your on the overworld. You can use these what you might call it. Like you press a button, you can spout fire towards a thing. So you play with puzzles and things like that.
The
That's what I
tools.
remember from. Oh yeah, the tools. There we go. That was kind of a thing for that. I believe the first 3 games you can do your choose the who you want to play first kind of thing. Then they switched gears for part 4 and up, which they changed the whole battle system, and everything is kind of this grid style. You can move your character sort of on this grid to fight the enemy, but it's still RPG. It's not a tactics RPG, but it's kind of a mixture. I remember that. And music's pretty cool, but very westerny. That's what I remember of the series. I haven't played Wild Arms in years, so but I have played them. They're fun. They're fun. They're definitely JRPG style, but mostly in a western way.
Interesting.
What I remember.
How about you, Kate?
So I tried out the original Wild Arms for the PlayStation late last year. From what I've played of it, it's a rather unusual game for an early PlayStation RPG. The majority of the game is in 2D, looking like it would fit just fine on the Super Famicom. The one real exception, however, is that when a random battle starts, suddenly you shift to having really basic, bare-bones 3D models and animations. I can see how it would be an interesting experiment, but I found how clunky and off-putting the 3D battles were to be a bit distracting. I do have to say that the game's setting is interesting, however. It's kind of a mashup of a bunch of different elements, with probably the most noteworthy aspect being that it has some elements inspired by the Wild West, as mentioned, alongside some more traditional RPG fare like castles and zombies. I might go back to it at some point, particularly since there's that Wild Arms spiritual successor in the works called Arm Fantasia. I want to see how that turns out.
Interesting. I had no clue about that one. All right, so what's next on the docket? Okay. Haven't heard anything about Grandia.
I know even less about Grandia than I do Wild Arms.
I actually played through the original Grandia pretty recently, just at the end of 2021. Part of why I wanted to try it was because I really like Trails in the Sky, and Grandia is a game that I often see compared to it, thanks to Grandia also having an interesting combat system based on turn order manipulation, and the fact that the story starts off fairly lighthearted, while gradually becoming more dark and serious over the course of the journey. All in all, it was pretty fun. It felt like an engaging adventure story in a semi-industrialized world, which fits as the protagonist Justin's main motivation is to become an adventurer. It's a very long game, however. There were several points where I thought I was about to beat it, only to be like, wait, there's more? So it's that kind of game.
Wow.
Yeah.
How about
Exactly what I remember of that one.
well, what about you, Great Way North?
Oh, yeah. I played Brandy 1, 2, 3, and Extreme, which is more of a dungeon crawler than the other 3. But my favorite one is 2 and 1. Mainly, I love the idea of what Kate said, is that you play the main character going on this grand adventure who wants to become kind of a adventurer. You want to see what's beyond that big wall and see what's beyond the outer world, and
The
then
end
I
of the
like how,
world.
yeah, what they called that.
Mhm.
It's also one of the first RPGs that actually had that, at least that I played, had voice acting, which was kind of a
Mhm.
neat concept at the time to me, especially playing Final Fantasy. That it's always silent, but you get to read it, right? So it was fun, and the characters are likable and fun, and the banter with each other, and it was just great. Battle system is really neat, because there's ways to stop an enemy from doing their attacks, and you can see it on this kind of bar grid thing. Yeah, the leveling up system of your weapons was really neat. The skill you can build up too. So as you use them, builds up. You know, it gains levels, and you make your character stronger. Um, I really love the story of part 1 and 2, especially. 2 gets really weird and dark. So, okay, if you do want to try another Grandia, try that one. Wow, the
I
storyline
have
is,
heard really good things about 2, but also that it takes a very different approach as far as its tone is concerned, so I'll bear that in mind.
yeah. But that's the first 2 are phenomenal. Music's fantastic, and I didn't like part 4 much. More so because of the whole dungeon crawling thing. I'm not a huge fan of that. It has to be done very well for me to play one of those. Um, I prefer
And
Shining the Holy Ark compared to that one.
I
Music though,
never... Go ahead.
right? Oh, sorry. Music was great. That was the final thing I was going to say.
Nice. I never hear anyone talk about Grandia 3 or Extreme. They always just talk about the first 2 games, and it's like the later sequels never existed.
Yeah, 3 is not bad. I did enjoy it, but Extreme is it's definitely rough.
I see.
All right, Mike. What about you?
Zilch.
Ah, that was beautiful. I love that.
I heard they're great games, but I know nothing about them. Combat's apparently great, but other than that, I got nothing.
Yeah.
That's
Well,
alright.
Well,
I think I saw like footage of a Grandia, probably the first one at first, and I think it looked like it used the same engine that Breath of Fire 3 uses. Or at least it had the same visual style and gave me like that impression, but I could not solidify that in any way.
Well,
I think maybe it does that, but it's an actual battle screen. It's not like where they just appear on the map in 3. So I don't know.
that's more than I know at all because I can't remember what console the original Grande was on.
PlayStation.
Yeah,
It came out originally for the Saturn in Japan, and then
Oh, I
it was
didn't know
ported to PlayStation 1, but the Saturn version was a Japanese exclusive. Although it did get an English patch recently, so you can play the Saturn version in English, and that's pretty cool.
Oh, okay.
Oh,
All right.
I
So
didn't know that.
let's move on to the Lufia series. Anyone have anything to say about that
Okay, I can talk again.
one? Go for it.
Oh boy. Alright, so Lufia is a series that pretty much focuses on more or less kind of a cyclical conflict revolving around basically these 4 deific figures who kind of come and go with each iteration, and there's always some kind of mark of their return. And so like they will come back, start making problems, folks show up, start fighting the problems and going through all kinds of stuff. Of particular note, a lot of folks are very, very fond of Lufia 2 in particular because of the fact that its dungeons have a very, puzzle focus, and you are provided with tools to solve these puzzles. Like at the start of the game, you only have a bow to fire an arrow and a sword to swing to manipulate the environment. As you progress through the game, you'll get other tools like bombs that will actually kind of have like a Bomberman chain mechanic to them, where one will blow up the rest of them in like specific timing. Otherwise, they take time, or like a hook shot kind of thing to reposition yourself for given things. And a lot of folks are very fond of that. The fighting system is pretty decent. Um, I think the Ikari system shows up for the first time in 2 as well, which is basically when a character takes damage to build up the Ikari meter, which is, anger. You can call it rage meter if you want. It's basically what it is. And depending on what equipment the character has, they can spend points from that meter to do things outside of their usual skill set. Another thing that it's particularly notable for is you can very selectively target enemies. So usually you're limited to single targets or group targets, like hit everyone or hit one person. Lufia 2 lets you go like, okay, number 1, number 3, and number 4, I want to target those. Number 2 can just stay out of it. And you can do it that way. I do know that some folks prefer Lufia 1 for its narrative. My mentor is of that disposition. I personally cannot really stand playing Lufia 1 because of the fact that your turn order is very much initiative as opposed to, select party inputs. So I'll be like, but they still kind of like go in order, or at least they do enough at the time that I played. So in like a different kind of game that has this kind of presentation, it's like, okay, or Lufia 2 for that matter. It'll be like, okay, I want character A to do this, character B to do this, character C. Oh wait, I don't want to do that because character A is doing that. I need to go change that. Boop 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 boop. Okay, change what character 1 is doing, etc. You can't do that in the first game because it is just okay. Character 1's turn, character 2's turn, character 3's turn. If you made an error earlier, you have to live with it, and that scuffs me more than I care to admit because the interface does not incline me to think in those terms.
Okay.
The third entry has some has basically like procedurally generated dungeons, which are neat in concept but not super well executed. It has a 3x3 party arrangement where you actually field like 9 people at once, but you game over if the 3 foremost characters die. And if you get attacked from the side or the back, that's counted as the front. So if you put all your squishies way in the back and you get a back attack and they all get wiped, well, you lose.
Oh. Were there only 3
And
entries?
then there were a bunch of... Oh, no, there's more afterwards. Most of them not good. Although my understanding is there's some more recent Lufia entries that are actually pretty decent. 2 actually got a remake, and it has things that are meritorious about it and things that leave people preferring the original. Oh, Lufia 2's big claim to fame, realistically, is it has the Ancient Cave, which has become kind of a gameplay concept in and of its own.
Okay.
Which is a 100-floor dungeon where you go in with nothing and just kind of take what you can get. And, it's kind of roguelike in that manner. But you are playing, a full-fledged, turn-based RPG.
Yep, that's definitely way more than I ever knew about Lufia. In fact, I don't. Did that start in the Super NES?
Yes.
Ah, I did remember that much. Okay.
It's the fully stinky.
Yeah. How about you, Grey White North? Any thoughts on Lufia?
1 second.
Okay.
I had to clear my throat. Sorry. I've only played the first 2, and I honestly never finished them. It's the first one. I enjoyed it. Problem with it was the way the battle system worked for me. Because, like Forneia was saying, it's like this turn-based. Like, initiative style. And if I remember right, if you kill an enemy, so like Final Fantasy 1, the next person that was supposed to attack that enemy does not go to the next enemy. And that kind of annoyed me. So I never really got too far with the Lufia series, although Part 2 was definitely better from what I remember. I never got as far as that 100-floor dungeon, though. So, yeah, I don't know much else beyond that other than I heard it was a really good one, and I don't know much about Part 3 other than it was released on...
Game Boy Color.
Was it the DS or something?
Game Boy Color.
Or Game Boy
Legends
Color.
Returns was Game Boy Color.
Okay.
Yeah, Ruins of Lore was DS, I think. No, that was GBA, excuse me.
Okay, gotcha.
Oh, okay.
But yeah, I never finished them, so I don't have too much beyond what I've kind of experienced. So, but I like the narrative. How I don't want to get too spoilery, but Part 2 is interestingly connected to Part 1.
That's still more than I knew about the series. All right, Mike, anything to say?
It's kind of a weird situation. If you're going to play the game, if you're going to play them, start with number 2, then play 1.
Yeah.
Because I'll just throw it right out. The intro for 1 spoils the ending for 2.
Exactly.
All right, Mike, you got anything to say about Lufia?
Zilch,
huh?
I can throw out that I remember there being an incredibly vitriolic review on GameFAQs about Ruins of Lore. Someone really hated that game, and that review made me laugh a lot.
Wow.
I didn't realize that was actually connected to Lufia.
Yeah, so Lufia, Ruins of Lore.
all I can say is that all I can say is that Lufia 2 is apparently one of the secret best RPGs ever. I'm not sure how well that claim holds up today. I have been interested in maybe playing it sometime, but I never really got around to it. And I hear the first is relatively negligible, so if I only have to play 1, then I should play 2 someday. And it has quite a good overworld theme. That's it. That's literally all I know. That I can
the
think
music
of right
was
now.
good. I do remember.
Yeah, at least.
How about you, Kate?
I've never played a Lufia game.
All right, high five.
Yay!
All right, let's take a different tack now, and since Brandon brought it up, Parasite Eve.
Oh,
Boy.
Any thoughts on any of those from anybody?
So I played the first Parasite Eve a few years ago, and I really enjoyed it. I think it sometimes gets regarded as Square's equivalent to a Resident Evil game, but I really think it stands apart as being its own kind of thing entirely. So, unlike a lot of Japanese RPGs, Parasite Eve takes place in 1990s New York City, and it has a pretty over-the-top sci-fi plot. It definitely has the appearance of a Resident Evil game, since you're dealing with 3D models on top of pre-rendered 3D backgrounds, but in practice, combat feels more like Final Fantasy's ATB system, but with the ability to move around and dodge enemy attacks in real time while waiting for your turn to come up. It has a
Quest
very...
64.
I'm sorry, what?
Just like Quest 64.
Oh. I was actually thinking it's more like Undertale, but that was decades later. But, it has a very moody atmosphere and an intriguing mystery behind it, while also being relatively short as far as RPGs go. I had a great time playing through it, and I want to check out the sequels at some point.
Okay.
It's totally short until you go to challenge the Chrysler building.
oh boy.
I was recommended to avoid the Chrysler building. That's a post-game dungeon that is 100 floors long or something like that.
Jeez.
Yep.
So how about you, Great Way North?
Oh, I was in the height of playing survival horror games at the time, especially Resident Evil and Silent Hill and things like that. And then Square brings out Parasite Eve, and I thought, oh, okay, this looks like Square's take on survival horror. Oh boy, was that ever different from anything I played at that time. It has the aesthetics of Resident Evil or Silent Hill, like Forneia was saying, but you have these
that was
RPG
Kate.
elements by leveling up and upgrading your weapons in different ways with skills and things like that. The story is phenomenal for it, especially for its time. Set in the 1990s, like you said. The protagonist, you want to see her journey go through to the end. You want her to succeed and beat the antagonist that's totally destroying the city by with all these creatures and what's happening to all the people, and the music, the atmosphere, everything about it was just utterly fantastic. I would highly recommend to anyone who wants to play a mixture of survival horror and RPG as well. It blew me away. I did like the sequel, but it's not quite as good. And they got rid of a lot of the RPG elements.
So I hear.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, so it's an amazing game. Amazing game.
Mike?
I actually have two funny stories about missing out on Parasite Eve, actually, if you can believe it. The first game is one that I believe I actually rented. I rarely remember any of the games that I've rented, but this one stands out because I remember, I was pretty young at the time, and maybe the M rating of the game probably shouldn't have been a thing that I played, but nonetheless, I found the atmosphere quite cool, and the intro wicked with the title villain Eve just going full-on carry at the beginning of the game, as I remember, and yeah, I had heard good about it, so I was in for a good time. And then the very first thing you fight in the game is a rat. A horribly mutated rat, totally blown up to ROUS proportions by Eve's crazy biomagic.
I don't believe
But
they
it was-
exist.
That rat mutation cutscene is so disturbing to look at even today.
Yeah. Two
Yeah,
things.
sure.
One, I wasn't that squeamish a kid, but that fucking freaked me out. And B, I didn't like having to kill a rodent. I loved rodent. I still love rodents. They're my favorite type of animal. I'm hardier about it now because it's all fictional. But as a kid, I was like, I gotta kill the rat.
Mike, how do you survive playing any video game ever?
I know.
Now I understand why Satanga doesn't like RPGs.
Fuck.
Oh,
now
boy.
this is then.
We have cracked the code.
Exactly.
The true source was Frisky, the second grade gerbil that I found so adorable. This actually was an actual critter. He was keep running around in his little ball throughout the classroom, but I've grown a lot hardier since then. I can distinguish the need between having to kill fictional rodents, which might be a problem to you, but just back then, I was not into it, and I stopped playing the game in pretty short order, and never got back to it, which I understand is quite a shame, because it is, by all accounts, a really damn unique game, and not just the setting, but also in all of its combat systems as well, so it's on my checklist to actually give an earnest play someday. However, it was also not my only encounter of the series, because for some bizarre reason that I'm still not exactly sure why, for one Christmas, on one Christmas day, my parents, I think it was Mom, got me Parasite Eve 2, and I was like, this wasn't on my list, what is this? I never beat the first game, why? And I rarely ever get bitchy about Christmas gifts, but that's usually because that I normally at least get what was on my list back then. This was not on there, and I couldn't understand the logic of getting the sequel to a game that I was scared off by, so I got kinda bitchy and petulant about it, and she just ended up returning it. And then I never got around to playing that one either, so... For two very dumb reasons, Parasite Eve has been a series I've almost entirely avoided. But at least I do have a couple of fun anecdotes that you've just heard about them.
Yeah.
Although it's probably just as well, because apparently the series got a very distant quote-unquote sequel called the... yeah, you feel the third birthday. I know zilch about it. Once again, that word zilch. Except that the Sphere Hunter, a YouTuber I like quite a bit, made a video just absolutely slamming it. But yeah, you can take that away, Forn.
All right. Before we go any further, I just wanted to welcome Nano Drive to the chat.
Hey, Nano.
Hi, Nana.
They're really cool. I like them.
And
she's wonderful.
I gotta say, there's only two rodents I've ever cared for. One is Templeton the Rat from Charlotte's Web.
Oh, he's great.
Especially the one voiced by by Paul Lind. And the other,
nice.
The other would be Harvey the Wonder Hamster.
Yes, you know.
Not familiar.
You know. That was from the Weird Al Yankovic show, if you can believe it.
He actually debuted, if I remember correctly, on an episode of Friday Night Videos in the early 90s that Al and Evo Phillips were hosting.
Wow.
Yeah.
I mean, that totally tracks. It's just I never would have guessed.
Well, no one remembers Friday Night Videos these days anyway. But, Kate, go ahead and...
you mean Forneia?
Is Forneia next?
Or Kate? Yeah, Kate went first.
Oh.
That wasn't me. That was Kate.
I must have been distracted. I'm sorry. Forneia, go ahead. Here I am going counterclockwise around the table, and it's like...
We're just blowing the order up however we want.
Yeah, Kate just kind of took initiative on that one. It's just like, all right, go ahead.
Yeah. Okay.
So, I do actually have a hard copy of this game.
Nice.
And I am going to say that the inciting reason for me to want to play this is the fact that I ended up really liking the music. And this game is composed by my favorite composer, Yoko Shimomura.
Ooh, good sell. Very good sell.
Who, she's got a few accolades, Kingdom Hearts, the portable Mario and Luigi games, Guile's theme.
Really?
Nice.
So, this is basically like the first point where her name came to my attention. I was like, oh, she did this. Because I learned about the whole Guile's theme, actually in very recent history, like within the last year. I didn't realize that was her, but here we are. But yeah, like, I heard the music, I picked up the game. It was real good. The game was decent too. It's like the one time I've ever been musically motivated to play a game.
Nice.
And the systems in Parasite Eve are neat and interesting. The narrative is interesting and compelling. I'd never even played a Resident Evil game. I didn't play Resident Evil until 4. So, like, those kinds of mental connections were not there for me. As like, survival horror was a concept entirely off my map. Never heard of it.
Ooh.
And so, for me, it was just kind of, this is an RPG where horrific things happen and children melt.
Wow.
But it also has one of the best set pieces for a boss fight I've ever seen in my life, being in a chariot when the horse is set on fire.
That was awesome.
That sounds like something Strong Dad would have written.
That is the best moment in the whole game. I was sold on it as soon as that horse lit up.
I have got to track this down.
Wow.
Chariot.
I never actually tackled the Chrysler Building because I did not know about it until, after I'd kind of put it down and picked up other things, and I wasn't really super inclined to go back to it. As others have said, the sequel is, it's a continuation thereof. It has some decisions that are broadly not appreciated by folks. I won't go into detail. It's not very. It's basically an actual like survival horror, more or less. It is not an RPG at all. Um, and they were both PlayStation entries, and that was all anyone heard about it. Ever again. The end. Happy ending. until the PSP came out, and someone had the idea of making a sequel that does not have the Parasite Eve name because that name is copyright by someone else. It was a license that they were actually using because it was based off of a novel of the same name, I think, that is universally connected to Parasite Eve, but not to the events of the game itself. And this game was called The Third Birthday and was... I'm just going to say that there is a something awful Let's Play thread called The Assassination of Aya Brea by the Cowardly Square Enix. And yeah, that is far more accurate than you will ever find as a descriptor for that game. It is not good. It is tedious. It is poorly written. It takes characters that exist, if you can identify them at all, from prior games, makes them horrible. The setting makes no sense. It's front and back. It's just probably one of the worst games that SE has ever put out, honestly. Wow. There's people who will talk down about the bouncer because it's incredibly dumb and stupid. At least it's charming, okay? Mm-hmm. There's merits to the bouncer. There are no redeeming factors about this game. None.
That's bad.
The visuals are bad, the audio's bad, the narrative's bad, the mechanics are bad, and it's gross. And I'm not talking about gross in terms of, oh, there are icky creatures. No, I mean capital G, gross.
That's bad. But it comes with a free Frogurt.
It comes with a free Frogurt.
That's good.
Frogurt is also gross. I'm sorry.
Also, welcome the Text Arc to the stream as well.
Oh, yeah, Text.
Hello. Welcome.
All right. Now, in the interest of time...
one of my regulars.
Oh, nice.
Nice.
Now, in the interest of time, we're going to skip a couple of the last entries here. But before we do that, I want to go ahead and go over a couple of, I guess you could say, honorable mentions in RPGs that we more than likely will not be doing at Retro RPGs 3. So,
I'm Retro RPGs 3.
There you go.
I'm Spartacus.
Well, anyway, there's Shadowrun. That's one of the ones that we won't be covering. I've heard.
That was one of the ones I was going to say a lot about. Oh, God damn it!
Good thing I'm not covering it then.
Oh, I'm kidding. Screw you, man.
No.
Yeah, I have a lot to say about that one.
And also the Mario RPG series, of which there are so many.
I was going to say the most about those.
Bastard! Shit!
Sorry, we're running.
I think you're being press ganged into 2.5 over here.
I think we can go a little longer. In fact, you know what? The one that we're probably going to talk about, I don't want to talk about it. I want to talk Super Mario RPG. God damn it!
Well,
I'm riding this ship now.
I will put this up to a vote. We can go for an extra half hour if you guys really want to talk about Shadowrun and Mario RPG.
I do!
Those are the ones that I was most looking forward to talking about.
No!
Good start.
Yeah,
and I have nothing to say about the final topic.
Yeah, I've got a bunch to say about Shadowrun. I have a fair amount to say about Mario RPG. And I'm kind of over here in the same corner as Satanga. The final subject there is something that, I'm totally cool with just skipping.
Oh, I have things to say about it, but
yeah,
I wanted to get myself into a positive mindset for the time being. So,
well, let me bring up another honorable mention here that I don't
Sure.
think was ever even brought up, and I'm more than likely going to mangle the pronunciation, but
Shin Megami Tensei?
no,
Suikoden?
that's the one.
Oh, Suikoden,
I was
right.
gonna say, like, it's
Suikoden.
kind of surprising we haven't had Suikoden on this. Like, not that I could say anything about it other than Psycho Mantis.
I need to play those games.
You like Psycho,
Yeah,
don't you?
I rented the first one long ago, and I remember very little of it. I hear the first two are very good, the second one especially, which apparently has one of the most ridiculously bastard overpowered villains in RPG history of all time. And people think that he's the final
fight.
boss, but like there's still like half the game after they finally die, so but I know very little of Suikoden aside. Other than that, all the games after the first two don't seem to be as well respected. So
All I can say about them is that was another series my brother used to play, and I saw him play it from time to time. But that's really about all I remember about it.
yeah,
So
I
First
know
two were
that
good.
I do know some folks who have played 2 and are very, very fond of it and hold it in particularly high esteem.
same.
But having not played it myself, I could not elaborate on why.
Great White North.
They did. Part 2 is definitely probably the best out of the series. Story, characters, music, and like Mike said, the bosses, especially the particular one called Look of Light that just steals the show in
Yeah,
that game. He's incredibly powerful and bit of an ass, to say the least. He's one of the darkest characters in villain history, in my opinion. But the game is pretty awesome.
Okay. All right. So is anyone opposed to going for another half hour?
I'm down for a half hour more.
I'll try and keep it lean, but these were the two I wanted to talk about the most. So
I wrote up notes ahead of time, so I know exactly what I want to say, and I can be very fast about it.
Great White North.
cool.
Oh, yeah, I'm definitely down.
All right. Well, before we get into that, I do want to say that I actually recently came into possession of a couple of Japanese RPGs that are entirely in Japanese, and I had no idea what to do in any of them. I received a box from a friend of mine the other day. In them, he included, and again, this is probably going to be a mispronunciation and a half, Tenge Makio, The Apocalypse 4.
Tengai Makyo.
Yeah, that one. And was it Watchenroder or something like that? It's a German name, I think. But these are both of the Saturn.
Yeah, Saturn's a bit of a blind spot for me. I never played until emulation, and even then.
Well, I tried them both out and I can't do a damn thing. So, but I just wanted to bring those up.
Yeah, it's unfortunate with Tengai Makyo because my understanding is that that series is very important and influential in Japan, but almost none of the games have ever been given an English translation, whether officially or unofficially.
Well, that's
Yeah,
unfortunate.
I think the only one that ever got that treatment was Tengai Makyo Zero on the Super Famicom, and like even then, the series just goes relatively unknown, all considered. And I mean, the
Maybe
only one
someday.
the only one we officially got was a fighting game spin-off on the Neo Geo called Kabuki Clash. But yeah, other than that, not much else we could say.
All right. And good night, 19. Thanks for stopping in.
See you, Nines. Take care, yo.
Thanks for joining.
All right. So
Bye.
let's go ahead and hit it then. Shadowrun. Go.
Okay, so Shadowrun is very different from a lot of the other series we're covering today, but I think it's rather neat and deserves attention. I don't have experience with the original tabletop game, but some years ago I played through the Super NES game, and I found it to be a very engaging fusion of cyberpunk and fantasy. It feels
Absolutely.
somewhat like the early Fallout games, but before Fallout itself existed. You're moving through mostly urban environments, which are sometimes run down, and engaging with humans as well as fantasy beings like orcs and dragons and the like. Yet there's also sci-fi going on too, with hacking into cyberspace and dealing with artificial intelligence and whatnot. It's a bunch of random ideas mixed together, but I find it works pretty well. The Super NES game has kind of an adventure game feel to it at times. As a good deal of the time, what you need to do to progress is go around talking to NPCs, and as you talk to them, you learn new terms that you can select from via a menu in order to eventually fish out the correct piece of info you need or get a key item that you need to progress. Probably the week... Oh, go ahead.
There's actually a reason why the game kind of does feel like an adventure game. I'm not sure if you found this in your notes, but if I'm not mistaken, the SNES Shadowrun was originally conceived as a possible sequel to the NES adventure game Nightshade.
I've heard there's a connection there, but I haven't played Nightshade myself.
I have. It's a really fun... It can be a bit of a hard game to play, but it's one of my personal cult favorites for the NES. And I'm still surprised that we got these two games from fucking Beam Software, of all developers. The makers of the Back to the Future NES game and a lot of other LJN shit. They really got their shit together, to say the least. I don't know what happened, but good.
I think Shadowrun is one of their more well-regarded games.
Oh yeah, of
course.
I do
have to say the weakest thing about it is that the combat is not very fun. It's kind of a real-time with pause system.
It's the only game where I kind of tolerate that.
Albeit it's mostly real-time in practice until you get the ability to cast magic, in which case combat pauses during that.
Oh yeah,
the combat in Shadowrun really made me wish this game was compatible with the Super NES mouse, because it really feels like a game. It feels like a game that was designed for keyboard and mouse interface, but it only ever came out on a system that uses a controller.
There is a ROM hack to implement Nintendo mouse control with SNES Shadowrun.
Oh, that's so cool.
But does that let you use the mouse and the controller simultaneously?
I could not tell you that because I have not used it.
Because I remember hearing about a way to play it with the mouse, but it handled everything with the mouse. So that's not really what I'm looking for.
If I may interject something for a second. Great Way North. Correct me if I'm wrong. Wasn't Eugene streaming Nightshade recently?
I don't recall, to be honest with you. Wait. I think he did, actually.
Yeah, it's that one with the... it's like a point-click adventure with the dude in the trench coat and stuff.
Yes, he did.
That's the one, yeah.
I think it was like a month ago or so.
Something like that,
Something like that.
I mean, I could see the link there, because also in SNES Shadowrun, you do play as a guy in a trench coat and shades. His name just so happens to be Jake Armitage, which is a big honking reference to Neuromancer, but... Yeah. Kate, sorry, is there anything else you wanted to say?
That's all.
Well, yeah, I am quite fond of the SNES Shadowrun. I just really... It has a dark atmosphere that very few other SNES games really embraced, at least for the time that it was released. I just, like... I'm not huge on high fantasy, but sci-fi? Yeah, no, that's totally my shit. But that this also has elements of fantasy, like orcs and elves, in this futuristic setting. That's always been such a cool thing of the Shadowrun series ever since its origins as a tabletop game. And I haven't played the tabletop, but I am more interested in actually playing Shadowrun than I am Dungeons and Dragons. But the SNES game is really neat, even if I did kind of cheat and abuse the vampire money exploit. I know it sounds ridiculous, but it's an actual thing.
I was going to get into that.
The funny thing about that exploit, now that you bring it up, is I played the Japanese version, since the Japanese version is entirely in English, but with Japanese subtitles. And since that came out later, it has some bug fixes, so you cannot abuse the vampire exploit.
Damn. Well,
I beat it that way, so I was able to do it.
Oh, that's not the point. The point is that Jake Armitage is the world record holder of most stakings of a single vampire in one evening.
Yeah, Forneia, if you wanted to continue, go ahead, because I'm not sure what else I could say about the game that Kate
All right,
hasn't
first and
already.
foremost, unlike all y'all damn motherfuckers, I've actually played Shadowrun.
Congratulations.
And I will say this, Satanga, do not have that be your first tabletop RPG.
Oh,
It is
okay.
incredibly convoluted. There are ridiculous amounts of dice. It is a wonderful setting, and it has all kinds of mechanics and other cool stuff. But boy, howdy, those systems are complicated and dense.
Oof.
Do not make it your first choice.
Thanks for the heads up in that case. That I will take that.
I
advice to
recommend
heart.
Feng Shui. Feng Shui sounds more like your speed, really.
Okay, sounds good. I'll look into it.
That being said, so I might be a bit off on this one, but my understanding is that the SNES Shadowrun, of which of the we'll say classic console Shadowruns is my less favored of them, but
As
still
a
favored.
matter of fact, yeah, I don't know when we wanted to get into the Genesis one, but continue. Continue. Go ahead.
You're damn right.
Yes. Wait, was that it?
No, you made me lose my train of thought.
Oh, Mike,
Right.
Mike.
Like, where's
Right.
that fucking Blair horn?
Oh, okay. Mike.
Thank you.
Yeah, no problem.
So my understanding is that one of the Shadowrun stories that is particularly notable is called "Never Make a Deal with a Dragon," and the SNES Shadowrun game draws particularly from this as an inspiration. I think it might be a follow-up, maybe. It's related to it in some way. I don't remember. It's been a bit, so I cannot say for certain. I will say that as far as those being inclined to get into the Shadowrun setting, the SNES Shadowrun is definitely one of the better onboarding points, since it kind of familiarizes you with the lingo, collectively and affectionately known as shadow slang. And
Boy, chummer.
exactly,
Love that. Love that phrase.
absolutely, the shadow slang is a lot of fun.
Mhm.
And in depth too. Boy howdy.
Yeah, it's
There
like
are
Klingon.
so many slurs in Shadow Slang. It's amazing.
Yeah, it's like Helvet.
And as has been mentioned, there are a number of exploits that one can take advantage of to provide one with an advantage, which is helpful because the game can be a bit dense with its difficulty structure due to its interface, and also the way that some numbers are calculated and some events being misflagged and other whatnot. So on the whole, being able to stake the same vampire, 20 times in the same evening is both fun and profitable, but entirely unnecessary, as Kate said. I actually prefer the Mega Drive entry, which is far more mechanically close to the tabletop as opposed to focusing more on the narrative. You play a character named Joshua. I forget if he has a surname. There is actually a ROM hack that will make Joshua into a lady. So if you want to actually have that option of character generation, hey, it's there. I would recommend it. And their whole adventure begins with turning on the evening news to see their brother's squad in a Shadowrunning group getting gunned down on live television, and subsequently basically dropping all of their financial assets to go to Seattle to find out what the hell just happened. And in order to figure that out, you need to take jobs, you need to do runs, you need to run the shadows yourself to get close to just what they were up to that caused them to get publicly executed on television by a hit squad, basically.
Interesting.
And I think it's real neat, and you can actually choose among archetypes, which is a thing that is in Shadowrun. It's strictly speaking a classless system for the most part, but very strong archetypes are very easy to translate to that kind of interpretation. So you have Street Sam is your fighter. You have various forms of magi. You have the Decker, which is your hacker, which is, kind of your thief, but not really.
Mm-hmm.
There's all kinds of things going on there. I cannot even begin to scratch the surface of talking about Shadowrun as a setting or a system, because you want to talk about how we have a half hour to get through 2. I would need 2 hours to get through half of the things I'm thinking of off the top of my head.
Wow.
Yeah. Yeah, they are... Go ahead.
So, to finish my thoughts, my understanding is that there is actually a Sega CD Shadowrun game that we did not get over here in the West. I think some folks are working on translating it. I am out of touch with that, but I'm very interested.
Nice.
I hear that's actually a very solid entry. In more recent history, the developer Harebrained Schemes developed 3 games using an engine that I think they devised. It's either that or it's on Unreal or Unity or something, but whatever. And the first one is called Shadowrun Returns and is kind of a pseudo, kind of not really sequel to the SNES Shadowrun, in that Jake Armitage actually, kind of shows up here and there and deals with events that occur in other Shadowrun novels. The second one is Shadowrun Dragonfall, which by and large is one that a lot of people consider to be the best one. It's definitely a good one. That one actually does not take place in Seattle. That one takes place in Berlin, very specifically. I think it's Berlin. Ooh. It's in Germany. And that area of the world is hard anarchist. There are no actual forms of government or anything. Everyone just kind of does things because someone with sufficient influence, either by right of arms or charisma, manages to keep things together in various points. And so it kind of goes into an examination of anarchism as a concept as a result, and how it does and does not work, which is very neat. The third one is Shadowrun Hong Kong, which I am rather fond of. It's a bit more straightforward in its narrative. None of them are non-linear, but its narrative is more firmly driven, I would say. And it has elements that are better than Dragonfall. It has elements that are worse than Dragonfall. I am always happy to see vampires that have incredibly mundane jobs as their day job, and they're trying to be incredibly cool despite coming from being an accountant or something.
Okay, that sounds amazing.
That's hilarious.
Yeah.
I'm always happy to see that.
Yeah, I've yet to get to any of the new games. I've heard that
I'm yelling at you to play them again. Go do it.
Again? You mean you're yelling at me again to go play them? Sorry,
yes, go do it.
Returns is potentially negligible, you said, right?
It's not. I'm not going to say that it's negligible. Considering that you've played SNES Shadowrun, I would say it would be a good onboarding point for you.
Okay. All right. Well, I just wanted to say that, yes, I actually do like the Genesis game more than the SNES one. I still love the SNES one, but the Genesis one, while being a more complicated and much more Western-style RPG, is... I don't know. I think I actually dug its setting more. The SNES one was already gritty, but this is gritty, giga gritty, if you will.
Welcome to Shadowrun.
Absolutely, yes.
It's like, Cyberpunk is based in, the logical conclusion of capitalism or something.
Indeed. Yeah, I read about how the Renraku arcology just went very badly, as I would expect something like that too. But the reason why I actually prefer the Genesis game is due to the web, the internet itself, how cyberspace is depicted.
It's called the Matrix.
The Matrix, right. Well, and that is... I mean, the Wachowskis were very likely Shadowrun fans, if I had to assume. But, yeah, in the SNES game, it's really blunt simple. It's sort of like, I don't know how to describe it, like a sort of tactical Minesweeper-esque board. That's a really crappy description, but there's not a lot to it.
It's incredibly rudimentary.
Absolutely. But in the Genesis version, it is like a whole other game within the game. It is its own entire thing. It is more like like an almost Phantasy Star-esque RPG. And, you have to learn to get better and more powerful at it, because doing redline Matrix runs late in the game is where the big fucking money is. And I really got into it.
Do this with a crap board.
Yes, no, yeah, you really gotta beef up your tech, and you gotta have a good decker as well if you didn't select decker yourself in the beginning of the game. But it is practically the meat of the game. Not that the overworld stuff is negligible, but the cyberspace part in the Genesis Shadowrun is really the secret sauce that I think makes it work better than...
Why do you keep saying cyberspace?
A little in-joke between me and Snarbu, actually. He just started calling it that, and I found it funny, so...
Okay.
Yeah. And yeah, I would like to play the Sega CD game someday, but we'll see when it gets translated. But both of them are good games, and I will get to the modern one someday, Forneia, but feel free to keep bugging me until then.
All right.
Gladly.
So, Great White North, do you have anything to say about Shadowrun?
Honestly, the only one I played was the SNES one, and I haven't gotten too far, and I would love to get back into the Shadowrun series because I heard so many good things.
Absolutely.
All right.
That's my 2 cents on that, honestly. I don't know much else other than it was a very nice, atmospheric, moody kind of game that I was not used to back then, so I thought it was pretty cool from what I played, but I just never finished it.
Okay.
The best character in the game is a gun shop owner who shouts out, "Guns, guns, guns! Yahoo!"
I just remember seeing pictures of it in magazines. That's my experience with Shadowrun right there.
That's cool.
Okay.
All right, so we got a little over 10 minutes. Can we squeeze Mario RPG into that?
I have a lot to say, and I will blaze through it as fast as I can.
All right, Kate, you are up.
Okay, so I love Mario RPGs a ton. Super Mario RPG, The Legend of the Seven Stars on the Super NES, was one of the first handful of RPGs I played after Final Fantasy VI. And since I like Mario, the idea of a Final Fantasy-style RPG developed by Squaresoft and set in the Mario universe was quite appealing. Particularly like the little quirks this game's design implements into the genre, as it's largely turn-based. But this also popularized the idea of timed hits, where when you press a button or do another input at the right time, you can deal extra damage when attacking or take less damage when guarding against enemies. That plays into the Mario feel pretty well, along with the fact that you have some light platforming that takes place outside of combat. That's pretty fun. And then several years later, Paper Mario came out from Intelligent Systems of Fire Emblem fame. Paper Mario borrows some of the gameplay concepts that Super Mario RPG had, like the timed hit mechanic, but it looks and feels totally different in that it's a 3D world inhabited by 2D sprites designed to look like paper cutouts. The world itself looks like a pop-up book, and it's a very striking art style for the Nintendo 64. I remember having some ambivalence about it as a kid, since I had really dug the semi-3D look of Super Mario RPG, but Paper Mario ended up growing on me, and I had a really nice time playing through it. It's probably a more traditional feeling Mario game compared to RPG, but it's well worth playing. Then later on the GameCube, Paper Mario The Thousand Year Door came out. It's a sequel to the first Paper Mario, but largely can be enjoyed on its own terms. I remember particularly enjoying The fact that after Paper Mario mainly stuck to traditional Mario conventions, that the Thousand Year Door was more willing to feature new settings and ideas for the series, ranging from a really creepy isolated village beset by a prankster ghost, to a floating island where Mario competes in a wrestling competition, to a train where Mario engages in detective work to solve a mystery. It's really inventive and imaginative, and I adore that. The Thousand Year Door is not just my favorite Mario RPG, it's my favorite Mario game, period. It's one of the only games I've ever played where after beating it, I immediately started an entire new playthrough and beat the game again from start to finish because I loved the story and characters so much that I didn't want to say goodbye to it all. And then, changing gears a bit, most recently, as of a week or two ago, I played through and finished Mario and Luigi Superstar Saga for the Game Boy Advance. I had heard quite a few people praise Superstar Saga over the years, basically since it first came out, and I'm aware it's a well-regarded game among many, but I had a lot of issues with it. Its overall game design felt a lot less cohesive, with an awkward control scheme both in and out of combat, unclear timed hit prompts, bloated pacing, clunky minigames, and an overall lack of meaningful strategic options. There were maybe a few amusing moments in it, but overall I found myself quite disappointed by Superstar Saga. It's probably one of my least favorite Nintendo games I've played.
Wow.
And I'm done.
All right. Mike?
I have two immediate thoughts.
Oh.
Go ahead, Forn.
Yeah,
you go first.
You go ahead.
So first of all, I wanted to express how much pain I'm over here hearing intelligent systems being primarily associated with Fire Emblem as I cry
Because
over
Nintendo Wars.
in the Nintendo Wars corner.
Yeah,
Having written
absolutely.
about that whole fucking series for HG 101, and I'm just over here going, yeah, my series. The one that gets held up by an actual war, fucking Russia. And then regarding Thousand Year Door, I'm just going to throw out that it is a thing for people to take various WWE entries, create their own roster, and run their own like little wrestling circuits on the internet, particularly Twitch. Of which I want to give a shout out to what was it called? Video Game Championship Wrestling, and a further shout out to the women's division, but that's not related to this. And within Video Game Champions Wrestling, Mario was in fact one of the contestants, and his entry call sign was in fact Gonzalez.
Oh my gosh, that's awesome.
Nice.
Okay, go ahead, other people.
Great White North.
All
How
right.
about you?
I only played Legend of the Seven Stars and the first Paper Mario, which I like both games, but I always had a more fondness of the Legend of the Stars one, just because it was Square was involved, and I was huge with the whole Final Fantasy thing at the time, and I liked what they did to that game. The time battle stuff that was mentioned earlier. Great music, by the way, and
Shima again. She's awesome.
yeah, and it captured the feel of like an actual Super Mario game. Not fantasy-ish enough until you get to the one boss, and which was named Culex, which was like you're fighting something straight out of Final Fantasy, and even had the battle theme from Final Fantasy 4.
Yeah.
Force boss themes. Which is the first time I ever heard anything actually Final Fantasy ever, actually.
Oh, wow, okay. That's an interesting way to be introduced to the music at the very least. And I like the cast of characters. You actually get to have Bowser on your team, and Princess Peach, and the Marshmallow Dude, and Gino. Yeah, Gino was pretty cool too.
I love Gino.
Yeah, and the settings were great, and going into like, what was his name there? Not
Booster?
He was going for cupcakes or something like that, and you get to actually see the original NES version of Mario in his castle or something.
Yeah,
like
that was
Yeah,
Booster.
that's Booster.
Yeah, I like the little nods to the older games, but at the same time feeling fresh and new, and great experience near the end of the SNES life too at the time, and what a way to cap off Square's final hurrah, at least on that system. So
Right. That was like the same year that the N64 came out, so it was a very late release on the system.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. All right, that's
as
all
for
we have.
Paper Mario, I played it and I enjoyed it. So
Well,
not
that's
much
all
else I can say to that.
and that is all we have time for.
Didn't go yet. That's the joke, isn't it?
Yes. All right, Mike.
Oh my.
You torture me so much, man. It is hilarious, though.
Just all in good fun.
Absolutely. Anyway, I can't think straight. Goddamn. So yeah, I played a lot of Super Mario RPG back then. It and Earthbound were like my two staples for RPGs growing up as a kid, and it was my second favorite. It might not hold up so well outside of nostalgia nowadays. I don't know. It's been a while since I have played it, but I certainly have a lot of fond memories of it, including the point where I got stuck after Marymore because I forgot to give that one thing to Frogophusius, and the game couldn't progress until I did that, so I missed an entire weapon for Mallow that got useless.
Oh no.
By that point, yeah, I just totally effed myself over. I had no idea why, but it's all right now.
I mean, I didn't do that either because my memory is horrible.
Well, as long as it's understandable. But yeah, I do kind of still like SMR 7 Stars the most of all the Mario RPGs because it is the only one of its type, whereas Paper Mario and Mario and Luigi both went on to be full-fledged series, so that this one stands out as being a bit more unique also makes it more special to me. And also, oh shit, what was I gonna say? God damn it. There was another thought I had. Now I just, okay, well.
I can't think any straighter than you because your, like, vocal flub is getting me thinking of ASM Mario RPG now.
Oh, wow. Oh my gosh. Okay, oh, I'm impressed then.
That's a sequel.
Wow.
But, yeah, I do like the first two Paper Mario games, although I do have a hot take. This might also be nostalgia, but I think I like the first Paper Mario just a very slight tad more than 1,000 Year Door. That's not to discredit 1,000 Year Door, it is also a great game. I think it has higher highs, but I also think it has lower lows, like the back half of Chapter 4 being very tedious, in my humble opinion. And, well, to each their own. I just thought. I mean, I thought it was an interesting gimmick, but it got a little bit old to me sooner than later. But once again, it's still a great game, and yes, you do get. Yeah, I think I got all the. I mean, you're supposed to get all the stars in those games. That's kind of the thing for them, I think. I also went on to play Super Paper Mario, which is much less of an RPG. It has like trace RPG elements, but it is more of an action game, and it is a real odd duck of a game, to say the least. Very interesting. Not sure if I want to play it again. That's kind of my thought on that. And I did like the first Mario and Luigi quite a bit more than Kate did, but again, it's been a long time since I played it. I think her criticisms are relatively valid. Like, I do remember that one escort part being shit. I remember her complaining about that. What? Escort missions are almost never good in anything. Almost never. But I still like the game for what it was. Its first sequel, Partners in Time, was okay, albeit painfully linear, even for RPG standards. But the third one, Bowser's Inside Story, is also quite a good game, and really kind of brought the good vibes of the first series back, and most consider that more the direct sequel, all things considered. I will admit that the villain Fawful is very obnoxious and meme-lordy and kind of outdated in his language, but, you know, it was the 2000s, it was what it was.
When I think of Fawful, I think of that holds up plastic spork meme.
I actually don't think I know that meme, I'll have to look that
The
up.
Penguin of Doom.
No, I'm sorry, Kate.
No one here knows this? Oh my gosh, it's like one of the classic copy pastas.
No.
Sorry. I'm very
Yeah,
sorry.
Right.
But
You're not
I
missing
did-
out on much.
Fair enough. I pretty much stopped both of those series afterwards because I heard that Paper Mario Sticker Star fucking sucked and everyone hated it. And then the fourth installment of Mario and Luigi Dream Team, I hear didn't necessarily suck, but it was just kind of mid. And then like the series crossed over once or twice, and then like they just kind of fell into irrelevance. But the Mario RPGs all started out great, and I certainly had fun times with them. So
All right.
yeah.
Well, we are out of time. And just so everyone knows, because it's the one we've been dancing around this for 2 streams now, and we're not going to cover it. Because the general consensus here seems to be that this particular RPG is just kind of...
Okay, let me just ask: is BL85 Gamer currently listening? I don't know if they've went away because I think they're the one requesting that we do this.
Oh, if he's not still here, I'll let him know.
Okay. All right. Well, I just want to say,
Go ahead.
yeah. All right. Just to make this clear, and I am going to make this clear. Chrono Trigger is the most overrated video game of all time. Not just RPG, video game ever. Period. Quit putting it at the top of all these goddamn lists. Seriously, Jesus Christ!
Wow, that was
Like,
some
why
nice
are you making these lists if you already know the fucking ending? God damn it! Oh.
Nice microphone burn.
Yeah, I'm sorry for spiking it. I just wanted to vent that. That's all. I'm good. I hope you are too. Chrono Cross is good though. I like it.
And that got mentioned, so... Anyway, on that note... I will be taking the next weekend off. Mike has some personal business to attend to. And as such, will not be available next week. So I'm just going to kick back for a bit. And we are not doing Retro RPGs Part 3, Snarb. Sorry. I think we hit most of the major milestones. And it won't be
Oh
called...
boy, I could just keep going.
Hey, yes.
That's on you guys. So
We could maybe cover like occasional RPGs as part of other overall topics, but I'm not sure we'll have a dedicated RPG stream.
Yeah, maybe we could do like a potpourri episode so that
quite possible.
we can cover Chrono Trigger.
I think that idea
in more
smells.
detail. Okay, Form.
Well,
You don't
we
have
need
to be
a
on
Falcom
that, but that's
episode.
fair.
I got plenty
Dude.
of other streams planned, I can tell you.
Did you not get it? Did you not get it?
Oh wait, did I? I guess I didn't. I'm sorry, it's getting late.
Get what?
Potpourri.
Yeah.
Oh, for fuck's sake! God,
I don't get
There
it.
we go. I just had to wait long enough.
because potpourri is a thing that smells. Besides
scent-
being a
it is
Jeopardy
scented.
topic, yes.
It is
Yes.
scented.
Yeah. Anyway, whether or not I end up streaming before
Give
June
the man a
again,
cheese.
that's a good question. But I know for one thing for certain, as soon as we can arrange the schedules, we're doing that Gradius stream. That is important. We'll be back in my wheelhouse then. And I did not forget Ogre Battle, Sharon. We just never brought it up.
I could talk about this.
Sorry.
Okay, maybe we will have to make another one someday. I'm sure we can scrounge up enough.
It might be a while, though, because with all the ones I have planned, because I'm going to be doing a special...
Oh, I don't blame you. I don't blame you. Let's be clear. It's just, this is kind of my territory, so you know.
Yeah.
We'll be glad to invite you back if it does come up, though.
Yeah, true.
I mean, I don't want to speak for Rob, but I'm sure he would.
Well, if we do. But I can tell you, I'm also planning a Monday night stream at one point, which will be one of the Castlevania streams I'll be doing.
Hello.
Yep.
I'll probably be streaming during that time, so I won't be present, I'm afraid.
No
It's
problem.
all right. You can always catch a replay. And at one Saturday towards the end of June, I do have a stream in particular that's going to be very timely, but I won't bring that up until later. And neither will you, Mike.
I don't know which one you're talking about, so okay.
Oh, don't worry. I'll remind you. Anyway, beyond that, so aside from just the usual stuff about the books and whatnot, that's all we have time for right now. So we're gonna go ahead and call it quits for the night.
Thank you all for joining us.
Yes, thank you all very much.
Thank you.
That was fun. Sorry for my vent at the end. I just had to get that out. I'm good now. I'll go to sleep.
You got it out. That's the important thing.
I'm a
Good
mermaid.
night.
And as Mayo the cat, I am signing off. So good night. Thanks for everyone for coming, and thank you again to my guests and Mike, my regular co-host.
Bye bye. Uber.
Yeah.
See y'all.
Bye.
Bye.
Everybody have fun.